How are we all? Panel on shoplifting, are we pro or con? We're neither. We have different attitudes depending on context and who's doing it and where and to whom. It's a complicated issue. There is a world of difference between a low-income person who's being gouged at the supermarket, dropping an extra thing into their bag, and somebody robbing a mom and pop shop for the money in their till, right? There's a difference. There's a difference between a person who can afford things lifting cosmetics because they don't like to spend money, and a person who can't afford things reselling it to use the money to have a basic standard of living that's otherwise denied to them, and that's the case. Like, it's complicated. It's very complicated. It's not as simple as being for or against. There's the additional factor that a lot of the organizations where these infamous shoplifting videos take place actively engage in some of the most egregious forms of theft. Actively. I'm not talking about in terms of, well, they inherited their land from colonialism. That's also true. But I think more of, for example, I used to work at Walmart a long time ago, and I remember having this surreal moment where they do this horribly demeaning morning cheer thing, and they'd lecture you about ethics on something. And we're surrounded. They were lecturing us about time stealing. They were lecturing us about time stealing amidst piles of boxes from the floor almost to the ceiling with "Made in Bangladesh" printed on them. And this was at the same time that it was circulating in the news that one of their suppliers in Bangladesh, a sweatshop, caught on fire, and I think everybody inside died. Everybody or most of the workers died. And the reason why they died is because while they were working, the doors were locked on the facility. So, as far as I am concerned, in terms of the shrink suffered by a corporation like Walmart from people shoplifting from them, Crimea River, okay? These are places that consciously employ slave labor to get their product at a lower cost. By the same token, there are dangers associated with doing shoplifting in a particular kind of way, and there are people for whom there is less justification than for others. So it's complicated. Does that make sense? So I don't know how this conversation is going to go. It should be... Oh yeah, Straighterade. Sorry, that was a stupid example. I should have said there's a difference between shoplifting from a Walmart and shoplifting from like a mom and pop shop, not armed robbery. That was a stupid analogy. But yeah, you're right. So I'll be joined... I don't know actually what the divisions are. So I'm conditionally opposed and for. And not even really for. Like, there's a difference between being permissive of shoplifting and being for shoplifting. I don't think being for shoplifting is a good thing. I think shoplifting... Like, I like Merrick's take on it. If you see somebody shoplifting food, you didn't, right? Basically that. By the same token, if you're going to walk out of a store with a cart full of meat like Daniel Ocean, that's now going to be used to rationalize increasing security, increasing police presence, all sorts of antisocial stuff that you don't want. That's also going to make it harder for everybody else, too. People who are probably in, like, a serious state of need when they do so. So, by the same token, you can't be stupid, and you can't be, like, frivolous that way. Like, it's a dangerous thing that comes with serious penalties, and not just for you if you get caught. Does that make sense? Oh, Walmart's horrible. Walmart's one of the worst companies on earth. Or if you want to intervene, offer to pay for their items. Like, here's the catch, though. They won't necessarily let you go just because somebody else offers to pay for the items, right? So that's tricky. I think it's just not a tenth as big a deal as reactionaries are making it. Yeah, it's not. It's not. I mean, the price of food and supermarkets, at least here, is not rising commensurately to inflation. It's rising vastly in excess, and stores are making a mint. So you are essentially being extorted. Um, this is definitely not an ethical dilemma. In terms of who stole first, it's pretty clear cut. The question is, what is the impact on the community? And I think personally, if it's done moderately, in a way that doesn't produce pro-security, pro-surveillance, pro-cop propaganda, um, I'm perfectly happy to turn a blind eye myself. Sunday or just a status bootlicker? I mean, it's in my name. I'm a president, after all. I'm not the bootlicker. I'm the boot. Licking my own boots like a cat. No, I mean, oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. So, sorry, what straighterade means is that if you see them in the commission of shoplifting, before they're caught, offer to pay. Yeah, that makes sense. Although there's a catch. Here's a catch. They have to trust you. A lot of, like, I can see somebody doing that and then turning them in at the till, potentially. Like, it's tricky. It's tricky. You're regardless of what your intentions are, you're interfering with somebody in the midst of a crime that comes with penalties. Whether or not you think it's ethical or not, that person's in a dangerous spot. So it's complicated. But yeah, I agree in principle. If you can get away with, if you have the means, you can get away with helping somebody to pay for something to get out of danger, I suppose. Sure, but Jalma says, often shoplifting is framed in terms of negative externalities. Then you realize that most supermarkets throw out so much unnecessarily, not to mention the exploitation of labor in other countries. There is a counter to the throwing out bit, which is that they can't be liable for produce that is old, and they will be held liable if they give away, for example, produce that's gone off to poor people. Granted, judging from my latest grocery store excursions, they don't have any problem with giving rotten food to people who pay either, so maybe not. Love a video of yours on Derrida or Demand. I haven't read Derrida and I haven't read Demand, so if you want to be a top tier patron, I can start research on that for you. That's how I roll these days. Or I can suggest something for the theory stream, for the theory options, when the meter here gets to 100, because when it gets to 100 we skip everything and we go straight to theory. When we have planned events like debates or panels, what'll happen is the next stream will be theory first, and that's how that will work. So it'll be deferred by a stream, unless for whatever reason, yeah, it just means that the next segment will be theory. If it's drama we're going through and it's just me covering it, we'll just axe it and go straight to theory. What's this? Although one of my friends once went on lunch while someone was yelling at one of his coworkers about him trying to scam her on a car battery. An hour later, they got back from lunch, then heard the same lady calling the guy a house N-word. What? She was trying to buy a premium battery in store. The price she had looked at online was the one for a normal one. I don't know where you're going with this. Hey, Zenzi. Thank you, Gendrix, for the renewed membership. Appreciate it. I used to work in a restaurant. We used to throw out a lot of food, and it's for safety reasons. We can't guarantee safety standards, so it's an unaccountable liability. Yeah, that's my read on that. So the throwing out food thing, like, there probably is a lot of waste that's unnecessary, but I think that there's too much of an easy retort about liability for that. That's kind of the point, though. A lot of times food isn't donated just on the off chance it's bad, even if it's not, hence shoplifting. Well, not hence shoplifting, that's the trick. See, like, one of the problems here is that if you're using need as the justification, there needs to be need, right? Because if there's not need, then you look like a fool for making that argument. I think what's a little bit better is to point to the extortion that is taking place broadly in terms of the necessities of life. Turning a blind eye when people are taking things that are necessary. And then, I mean, bluntly, like 90% of this, the appropriate response is just nothing at the moment. because like the issues are too deep, and the only response to uh, shoplifting is either going to be to solve the systemic issue behind it, or to police people out of even being able to use the store as a store, which is the direction people are taking. I just wish people would stop creating propaganda opportunities for people who want more policing and more surveillance. They're starting to put cameras on store workers' vests now. What is need? Well, typically the threshold is you can't live in a humane way without it, right? So if somebody steals a copy of Breath of the Wild, it's probably not need. Like, people do shoplift for ignoble reasons or for, like, frivolous reasons. So I think that's maybe a good distinction, frivolous versus pragmatic shoplifting. Like, you're shoplifting to satisfy some necessity. And we don't need to put necessity at the level of, like, bare survival. We can put necessity at the level of, like, living like a human being with a standard level of dignity or something like that. Versus shoplifting for pleasure. So, I am not doing the same kind of thing when I walk into a Walmart and I steal a copy of Halo as somebody else is if they walk in and they steal toothpaste. Does that make sense? Is that true? That would be useful information, actually. So Straighterade says that hiring a security guard per store is usually more costly than the loss incurred by annual theft. That's going to depend on the store. So I can see that one. I can see that one being a bit tricky. There's another argument against shoplifting, in that, like the meat lady as an example. One of the issues with that one, besides it being like just visually not great, is that she took a lot of product that now other people can't get access to. Paying or non-paying. It's just gone. We don't have any particular reason to think that she was distributing it to her community. We don't have any particular reason to think she was selling it at a lower cost. We just don't. And the consequence of that, of really stupidly walking out with all that product on camera, knowing you're being video camera, to your vehicle and fleeing, is that her partner, I believe, is... I don't know if she's still at large, but she was sentenced pretty harshly for it. Yeah, that's true. So even with petty shoplifting, it's possible for that to be motivated by need. So, like, there's an ambiguity there. So it's tricky. Because you can sell, right? And you can sell and use that money for things of need. And perhaps it's safer to steal things like that than it is to steal large volumes of things. I disagree that the distinction is a hard one. Things like entertainment are also needs. Okay, but serious, here's the problem. You're still relying... No, things like entertainment are not needs. You can find ways to entertain yourself without stealing. I'm sorry, there's a limit there. That's in the realm of frivolity. Okay. Because what are you gonna do? I'm sorry. What is the argument here? Society is not going to die tomorrow, and it's not going to reform in such a way as people respect each other's autonomy and privacy if we've conditioned ourselves to think, oh well, this person is this item is held by a thing that I can trace an injustice to at some level of resolution, therefore I'm entitled. That's going to describe everybody till the end of time. That's not good. That's an untenable proposition. Entertainment is a need, therefore stealing a copy of Halo makes sense. No, if you're using it for money so that you can live well and live decently, that's fine. To get you to a point where you can contribute. That's what it is. That's where the threshold should be, in my opinion. Yeah, exactly, Jama. In other words, there's zero faith left. Most large retailers are engaging in good faith, so we need to create the conditions of mutual trust again, and not trading prices as what? I think you're... Oh, I see. That's true, lifting can be done by employees as well. A lot of it's done by employees, actually. But for every employee who shoplifts, that's one employee less who's watching. There's also privilege elements to this, too. Like, people with darker skin are typically going to be... depending on your area, they're typically going to be watched more than people without. If you dress well, you're going to be watched more than people without. If you have skin conditions, you're going to be watched more than people without. So, yeah. It's not universal. Like, sometimes people who don't have these properties are watched too. I carry around a laptop bag with me frequently because I carry books in it when I go out. So I've always got people looking at me because oh, this is like where you'd stash stuff. But, Siri says, I read an interesting paper on what things get shoplifted the most. Concealability is a huge factor, hence makeup being stolen. No, I'm aware of that, yeah. So, one of the reasons why things like makeup, certain health products, condoms are a big one, stuff like that. The reason why these things are locked up, it's not because people desperately need these things really fast. They do, by the way. But it's also because... there are groups of people who will shoplift as essentially a business. They'll they'll figure out when the trucks come in, they'll clean shelf, and they'll go. And, yeah. Yeah, the age also matters. Sorry, I've got Straighterade in VC. She's gonna pop on at some point before the thing if she gets home in time. That's why I'm responding to her, but she's not in chat. What I mean is that we need to stop allowing large companies to cross-subsidize, set prices based on having monopolies, offer other financially shitty stuff. Yeah, I agree, Jama. So, like, the issue here fundamentally isn't ethical. The issue is if there are forms of shoplifting that can be turned against the community that's being extorted by these companies, that for me is... Oh yeah, menstrual products too as well, yeah. That for me is the threshold. Because, like, Meat Lady, store's going to be fine. Meat producer's going to be fine. Who's not going to be fine are the people who now have to deal with intensified policing and surveillance as a consequence of the spectacle. And some people will argue that the spectacle would be there anyways, they'd find something else, and maybe that's true, but I don't know. That seems like a conjecture to me, and I don't like making judgments on those grounds. Oh my god, this thing just won't stop blasting. Okay, there we go. Oh, we got Carl Max here. Hello, hello. You're muted, by the way. Still muted.
Yes.
There you go.
Sorry about that, my mistake. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm much better than yesterday. That was awful. Do you want to introduce yourself to the audience, pronouns, etc.?
Yeah, sure. My name is Max. You'll know me as Carl Max on Twitter, and I go by any pronouns, but I identify as non-binary.
Okay, but you have what sounds like an English accent. Am I correct?
Yeah, it's like a weird, fucked up English accent.
I don't think you're the real Karl Marx. Wasn't he German?
No, I'm half German. I'm half English and half German. Okay. I'm both.
That checks out. Okay.
I'll start shouting in German at you if you're not careful. It's my special ability. So, what do we? What's the plan?
There's no plan. Very quickly,
vibes?
Well, very quickly, Straighterade makes a good point, and that's a good point of clarification. She says, I hate this idea that someone is protecting the community when one reports alleged shoplifting. The community doesn't own Walmart. You're defending capitalism, not your community. I agree with that. My issue is the misuse. Not the misuse. I guess it is the appropriate use given what they're trying to do. The use of spectacles of shoplifting done very poorly. That's then used to justify increased surveillance and policing. And one of the problems with it is that we are kind of, vast majority of us, not us weird critical people on YouTube, the vast majority of us are conditioned to regard shoplifting as something trashy and gross, and immoral. Even if we have in the background, we know that we're being exploited by our companies. We know the companies are acquiring their goods through slavery, et cetera, et cetera. We know that they're being gouged. Why? Because we're also underpaid and we're paying for the same thing. We're also being gouged ourselves. And one of the issues is when you have that spectacle, it creates impetus both within the lower classes and people who are going to misuse the spectacle to make a broader propagandistic point. That gets turned against the community itself. And then you get like increased surveillance that's now treated as justified by everybody, including the workers at the store who are themselves being exploited. So it's like that's like with Meat Lady, that's my issue. It was done badly. Had she discreetly managed to get stuff out of the store and benefited from it personally and made her life and maybe somebody else's life better as a result, from like a supermarket like that, I wouldn't care.
Yeah, with Meat Lady, I think it's best for us if we just avoid commenting on that outright because we don't know the conditions
that's 100% going to be brought up in the conversation.
I know it's going to come up, but I think if we say that we can't really make an ethical decision on it because we don't know what's like happening in full, like, I don't know. I think because there are so many cases in which like the American system can fuck you and suddenly make you really, really poor, or like give you like a shit ton of debt, right? Like if your family gets, you know, terribly ill or something. And there is probably like a case in which you could convince somebody else to be like, hey, actually, you know what? The little theft is okay. I mean, people can like empathize with like Walter White, right? Yeah. Like people, I think if you approach it right, you can get 'em. But as we don't know the full case there, we should just avoid, you know, making any big claims about it, I think what we should be doing as well is make sure that it's clear that shoplifting is okay sometimes when it's like, you know, necessary, because there is like a shit ton of like
if I can push back a little bit.
Go on.
I think the language of "it's okay sometimes" gives the impression of a what's the word I'm looking for here, of a prescription, when I think what is the way to go forward, because here's where somebody else will go a little bit farther down the line and will start to look ridiculous. You correct all of the injustices in terms of market gouging and stuff like that, and we're now in a world where that doesn't take place. Well, unfortunately, we've all conditioned ourselves to use the presence of past injustices to justify literally any kind of invasion upon other people's quote-unquote property or personal belongings, so to speak. That becomes sort of a quiet implication in what we're saying. I think what would be better is to say that under present conditions, I really like Merrick's response to this. You just didn't see it. This isn't a matter of it being permitted or not permitted. You don't acknowledge its existence as like a matter of course. I think that's probably the way to go. For that reason, and for the reason that there are going to be cases where shoplifting actually does hurt the community. Not in terms of the harm it does to the company, but in terms of depriving the community of the products which they can no longer access because they're now withheld by the people who've taken them. Because like in the case of Meat Lady, for example, that looked like an entire shelf that was taken down. Like that's just stuff that people can't get anymore. The other thing is the other thing with respect to the spectacle itself, if it's done in a way that actually affects, because I go into a store and I need something and it's all gone and I'm told shoplifters did it, I'm going to be mad, right? And I'm not going to be mad at the store. The store did their end of the bargain. They did a lot of other bad stuff too, but as far as I'm concerned in that moment, that's the issue. So I think those things need to be avoided. I think there is such a thing as doing shoplifting in a bad way, ethically, so to speak. Ethically, there you go.
Yeah. That's pretty much
renewable shoplifting.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's what we should be advocating for. Yes. But
green shoplifting.
Yeah, I mean they're real. I mean, I think a lot of shoplifting is green, to be fair. When you consider how much food they throw out and stuff, that's an argument I thought of, but I don't think I'm going to use it. But like, you know, they waste so much shit. So who cares?
you know what I would kind of like.
I'm not going to make that point to
You
them.
know what I would kind of
What?
like, and
Go on.
here's like sort of a halfway house between the two. When you're
Mhm.
doing that throwing out of all the food, have a shelf on the back of the store where it is placed before it gets tossed.
Yeah.
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 And
Just have a
then-
little section of the
yeah.
shop for
And
that.
then when a couple days transpire and it turns brown, into the compactor. Boom. Just keep the rack
Yeah.
full, and everything else doesn't fill the rack, toss that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. You can.
I don't know. There's
though,
probably a
argue that
reason why that's stupid, but continue.
yeah, kind of. I mean, some supermarkets like Walmart has made efforts to send over like some food waste or like
Yeah.
stuff they were going to throw out to like food banks and that kind of thing. But the prices are still insane and it's still unaffordable for
Yeah.
most people, and most people aren't going to food banks and stuff. So, yeah.
Well, I think the trick is that, and once again, like it's the meat lady case is instructive. I feel bad for her; she's going to be known as meat lady for the rest of her life. I think the meat lady case is
Pretty
ins-
brutal condemnation.
the meat lady case is instructive because the people who were following her out and recording her and fighting with her to take the product back, the people who got her caught, they weren't security, they weren't the police. There wasn't a manager. It was the low wage workers. And what I think that demonstrates a little bit is that like what you're also you are contending with the fact that a large amount of lower class people are themselves motivated to defend their own oppression because of spectacles like this. Yeah, and like the irony of it too is like a lot of people who will engage in that kind of like policing that way, like the workers, they'll slip something in their pocket now and then, very rarely.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you're working on the floor and you were picking up, somebody had like unwrapped something, some kid had unwrapped something or whatever, and in the course of picking it up and being about to put it back, quote unquote, you put it in your pocket because you get distracted and you just kind of forget it's there. People do that.
Yeah.
I've seen people caught for
Another-
that before. Yeah.
Yeah, another good argument that you can make here as well is that a lot of employees steal. Like employees steal.
That's
only,
what I'm-
like,
that's what I'm talking
10%
about, yeah.
less shrinkage. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you get it then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they only steal 10% less of the total like shrinkage value than like outside thieves do, right? So if it really did harm employees so much, why would they be risking that? Why would they do that at all? And yeah,
Yeah.
So I feel like you can take it apart pretty easily if we approach it like that.
That's interesting. So Straighterade said she's observed looking in the dumpster for destroyed objects, and often the store will actually deliberately soil them. That's intriguing.
Oh, that's so sad.
Now, food I can understand.
Yeah, I think I
if
read
it's-
about that.
Yeah, well, food's tricky, but like cosmetics, shoes, etc. If that's actually just going to the landfill, like what the hell?
I mean, even if it's like food, if someone's getting out of the dumpster, they know it's not going to be like peak like healthy, non-infected shit or something, right?
Would all these wannabe Rorschachs report an employee they saw stealing? Of course they would. No compromise.
Yeah, most likely. I mean, angry lib types probably gonna be like, you're ruining the world. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. There is something else too, like the percentage of people who are caught shoplifting doesn't actually correspond to the number of people who do shoplift, and a lot of them. Thank you so much. A lot of them are a lot of shoplifters are actually this is the reason why I go into like the needfulness is a critical factor, not in terms of judging individual shoplifters, but in terms of judging the ethicality of doing it, because every single time, regardless of how carefully you do it, you are risking all of the aforementioned. You get caught in a bad way, it's going to be used in the exact same way. When you have people who do not have need, people like, let's say, in my position and upward, who are stealing luxury items for their own personal use, I'm like, okay, you're now taking a risk against a community that you do not have skin in the game with, for the sake of your pleasure. So for me, that's an issue. That's why I was objecting to Sirius's argument earlier that entertainment counts as a need or something like that, because living up to a certain minimal standard, sure, I'll buy that one. Like, it's one of the reasons why I have a lot of like leeway with makeup, because that's like a critical component of presentation for a lot of people. Sorry, I'm rambling. You were trying to say something.
It's okay. Yeah, do you have anything else to get out? Or?
Is that a Vosh raid? Voshites! Welcome, friends!
Wah, Vorshites! Hello, everybody.
The libs are invading now. Welcome. Brilliant. I think this is the first Vosh raid we've had. Hey, DemonMama, how you doing?
That's nice.
Beautiful. Vosh is actually having a really interesting stream earlier. He was going into the some interesting stuff in Armenian politics that I wasn't even following.
I need to figure all that out. I need to do some research there.
I think on the 29th... Actually, no, is it the 29th? I might not be... Yeah, I think on the 29th, I'm doing the Marx debate, but I'm also doing... I think me and Jalma are going to go over the issue here recently. So I'm in British Columbia, and I think it was in June or July, this summer. There was an assassination of a Sikh separatist who is basically living in exile here.
Oh.
And two gunmen killed him. And Trudeau is yesterday, pointed fingers at the Indian government for paying for them to do it. So it's...
Oh, shit.
Oh, yeah. So it's...
That sounds fucking crazy. Jesus.
Oh, it's really crazy. It's weird, too, because, like, you don't tend to associate British Columbia with this kind of thing. Although British Columbia
sounds very tame to me for some reason. Yeah.
British Columbia on the global stage has a bland but dark history. It's yeah.
I wouldn't expect that.
I've got a whole... Oh, sorry, go on. Go for it.
No, you go first.
No. I was gonna self-plug my own videos. It's okay. Continue.
That's okay. You can do that if you wanna.
I've got a video series, actually a video now. I've condensed them into one on the history of nationalism as a concept. That goes into how right here is where we had the normalization of the need for what would become passports to transfer people between territories. Which is one of the reasons, like, it's literally because of British Columbia that you have borders in the situation that we do now. Because historically, like, the liberal position on borders was that you needed to be able to trespass borders. Why? Because the conditions of freedom under a liberal state are that you consent to be governed, right? That's the whole basis of social contract theory. At some level of analysis, you're being here and enjoying the laws and the protections of your society. That means your consent to the other stuff that you don't like. That's your consent to be ruled as well. But if you can't change your sovereign, if you can't choose to go somewhere else, then you can't tacitly consent to being somewhere because you're actually imprisoned.
Oh, yeah. I agree with that statement. Yeah. That's why I'm a big fan of the EU.
Yeah.
Like how I can, like, go anywhere.
So racists who really didn't want Indians working here, well, India was a part of the British Empire, and Indians were British subjects with freedom of movement globally through the empire, had a brilliant plan. Instead of saying, hey, we don't want Indians to come over here, put an arbitrary block over British subjects, they started concern trolling about how they can't read, therefore they can't decide ethically to work in the colonies, or they have what about their multiple marriages and things like that? And so you ended up with a process of for their own good having like literacy tests and therefore documentation validating people within the British Empire moving between territories. And that's how you have the breakdown.
Shit.
Yeah, that's how you have borders become ethnic filters. Because until that time, borders didn't correspond to, like, in the rigid sense we have now, the idea of like a wall on your border, nonsense. Nonsense. It's the British Empire. The entire point is that it's all the territory of one community under the royalty. So if you're a British subject, you're a subject of the British Empire. You can travel within it. If you want people to not go, you need to figure out a way to justify them not having their rights as subjects.
I mean, imagine being Indian and suffering under everything and the British rule, and then you can't even go to someone.
Oh yeah, no, yeah.
I wanted to ask you quickly. I have some statistics. So I tried to find a bunch of statistics about shoplifting,
Yeah.
and it seems there's not been too much like super recent stuff. And I found a thing which is like useful, but it's from the 1988 Journal of Sociology and Social Welfare. What do you think that's like? I could use that because it is helpful because it tells us like what the income of shoplifters is and how
Let's
much
see
like
this.
they have
That's interesting.
concerns about money. Yeah, it's great data, but I just don't know if I can actually like apply it because it's so old.
Where is
But I
this?
also don't think it would have changed that much.
Where is this
I
from
can
and
send
how
you the
old is
link.
it? I see it. This is the table you posted, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's from the Michigan University Journal of Sociology and Social Welfare in December 1988. So
Okay.
it's very old.
Well,
which is
it's
kind
not
of the
not
issue,
not
but-
that old though,
You
because
don't think? Is this
the
'cause I
wealth
don't
gap the
know?
wealth gap has increased. It hasn't decreased. So let's see.
Mhm.
So 23% of shoplifters, if I'm reading this correctly, come from families of under $5,000.
That's right.
This is $5,000 by not by year, surely.
This is. Oh God, I'm
Well, I
not
guess
sure.
1988, so
I
it
think
would
it might be.
it would scale.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that would probably be like survivable.
What? Okay, so what are 1988 dollars in? Hang on. 1988 dollars to 2020. Let's say. Actually, let's do pre-COVID. Let's say 2017. So $1 in 1988 is worth $2.60 today, and
Okay.
that's American. So double that about, so 10,000 a year, which is nothing. So if we assume the percentages remain constant, and it's a big assumption, in today's dollars, 23%, 23.5% of shoplifters come from families under 10K a year. 5.9 under 20K a year. That's interesting. Between 10K and 20K a year. That's an
It's
interesting
that
dip.
they go down there, right?
They go very much down. And then above that, from 20K to 30K a year, it goes up to 17.6%. And then it goes down again.
Yeah. I mean, I think I
What
have,
does
like,
N stand for here?
N is just the integer, isn't it? Isn't that what that stands for? I'm not sure. Let me I can check. Is that not just like oh wait, yeah, no, actually I don't know. Da, da, da.
Oh, yeah. No, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. I think so.
Okay, thank God. Phew.
Okay. No, my brain wasn't working.
Sample size. Wait, is it sample size?
That can't be the sample size. Sample size
No,
out of
no,
what?
no, that would be ridiculous, right?
Well, no, it's not integer. Is there a legend here? No, there's not. Whatever, we'll go with the percent, that's fine. I don't need to know what the N is. Do you have the paper from which this comes, or does it come from a paper, or do we just have the table?
Well, I sent the link to it. You have it right there in the thingy. Oh, you mean the larger one?
Oh, here we go. Hang on. No, I got it. Yeah, you're right.
Oh, no, you have it? Okay.
Yeah, I do.
All right.
Sorry, I didn't shoot a link because I'm dumb.
That's okay.
Let's take a look at this. Make myself smaller. Okay. So, just so y'all can see what I'm looking at. Economic motivator for shoplifting. Close that. There we go. Okay. So, it should be under that. Okay. Do we have anything more recent?
I tried to find more recent stuff. I can find like various things that kind of serves the same end, but nothing that's like this.
A lot of the
specific.
studies, I did a cursory look earlier today. Most of the studies I found are concerned with reducing shoplifting. They aren't concerned with the actual stats.
That's the thing. It's all very clearly biased, right? So they're like taking the worst, like most uncharitable, like conclusions out of all the data and everything. So I feel like it's not very constructive most of the time.
Yeah.
The most useful stuff I found is stuff referencing like the increase in like food insecurity and that kind of thing, which is obviously, you know, pretty correlated with if people are going to steal or not.
Anyway, so her conclusion, just to read this off quickly, the appropriateness of referring shoplifters for psychological treatment is questioned. Such referral is based upon the assumption that the primary motivation behind shoplifting is emotionally based. Exploring only the emotional factors related to shoplifting may result in treating only symptoms, since shoplifting appears to arise from multiple motivators. Economic distress has been found to be a correlate of shoplifting and is very often accompanied by emotional stress. When unemployment or other economic distresses are present, these variables need to be addressed in treatment and criminal justice responses. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. One of the pragmatic problems we're going to be up against in this debate is that even if you argue that there is an ethical reason for shoplifting or turning a blind eye to shoplifting, one of the things that's going to be used against us, and we need to be kind of prepared for this, is that you're still living under the same system that produces this, and nonetheless you can't have total anarchy, such is going to be the argument. Like, what, are you just going to let people just take whatever they want all the time? At a certain point it is going to become untenable if that becomes normalized, which is sort of trivially obvious. Now, we wouldn't expect that kind of situation to remain stable forever, and that would be like one point there where it's like, well, clearly things need to change if it becomes untenable. This is not necessarily a negative. But if that's given as a response, how do we retort? How do we say, well, probably it's not tenable if everybody does this.
We make it clear that not everybody should be doing it, right? I mean, I think that needs to be an important part of our argument, that we do recognize these cases. Like, for example, we do have the we got the data there, and we have like a substantial amount of people who are earning over 25 grand a year, and that would be like what, 50 grand today, earning over 50 grand a year, who are like still shoplifting and probably don't need to be. And we can, I think it would be a very effective move if we did condemn that where it is unnecessary, so we can then, you know, further emphasize the necessity of it elsewhere, right?
Yeah.
So I think that should save us then, because if we're saying that like it's caused by these material conditions and we want to like fix it by fixing the conditions instead, like America has like tons of fucked welfare system issues and that kind of thing. Like that's what's creating the problem, and we want to solve the problem. Like that has to be clear as well. Like we want to solve this, we just want to solve it in a different way and less judgmentally to the people who are shoplifting and doing the crime and might actually be victims of systemic issues, right?
Yeah, it's unfortunate we're debating libs, because solving the issue means not solving the issue ultimately.
How are they with debating, by the way? Have you debated these folks before? Have you debated like Lonerbox and stuff?
I debated Lonerbox before.
How was it?
Lonerbox is hit and miss. Lonerbox, when he, depending on the topic, can be very rigorous and careful. He also has a strong tendency to massively idealize things and to kind of run off of that as if that's a rigorous argument. So, for example, I had an argument once with him on prisoner, on like the justice of capital punishment and stuff like that. And he just declared, apropos of nothing, our justice system is based on reform. It's based on rehabilitation.
Wait, the American one?
It's based on rehabilitation. Well, I don't think he's American.
Okay.
But let's just run it.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's like,
I mean,
what do you mean?
Isn't really
Why do you think so? And there's sort of like an onboarding of the idea that because there's a lot of discourse, like say in the UK, about having a more social work approach to criminal justice and things like that, that therefore the justice system itself is actually oriented around that. But no, it's actually a moderation of a system that is entirely punitive. Good for them that it's less punitive than America, but you're kind of comparing, you know, like the Gobi Desert to the bottom of hell, which I guess is cold, so that doesn't count.
Okay, we should probably hop into the server now, no?
Probably. Straighterade, are you there? It's time. The time is upon us. All right, I'll see you in the server.
All right.
Godspeed. I don't want to do this, guys. I don't want to do this one bit. But we must. There, we got our virtual camera on. turn the PDF off. Hee ho ho. Okay. Oh, this is gonna suck. Heidi ho.
Wait, okay. Is everything working?
Hey, hello, welcome, welcome.
Hi.
Hiya. Hold on. I need to turn off my.
We can hear you.
Yeah, you can hear me. Hold on.
We can
Hold
see
on.
some of you.
Now, there we are. Hiya.
Beautiful, excellent.
I can't hear you guys.
Oh, that's a problem. That's why we get here early. Fix problems.
Oh.
Can you still not hear us?
No, I can hear you. Don't worry. Don't worry. I'm just fixing my stream.
Sure, but our friend Allie here.
Hello?
Not.
Oh, sorry.
No,
My
it's fine.
mistake.
Oh, Carl, I'm sending you something in the group chat.
Gotcha.
By the way,
National secrets. Okay. fair
exactly.
enough.
By the way, Wick, what side am I on here?
You came out as anti-shoplifting.
Yeah, but
But
not
if you want to switch sides,
categorically.
I have
I'm gonna be anti-shoplifting as a prescription. I'm not gonna be anti-shoplifting as in we need to stamp it out.
I have Loner Box and Lauren, who I have every faith can argue.
Which Lauren?
Lauren De Laguna, she's here. She's,
Okay, good.
Well, I guess
Good
she
Lauren.
went to get a drink or something.
I think I haven't met that Lauren.
But I have every faith and confidence in them. If you want to switch sides, that's fine. But we'll see.
I'm not switching sides. I'll argue whatever side I'm on. It's duty bound.
Straighterade, what's up?
Good God, you're alive.
Ta-da!
Just in time.
Hiya.
Sorry, just doing a couple last minute things on my end, some tech stuff.
Hey, I can't hear you guys.
Yeah, no, this is gonna be a problem. Okay, he can't hear us, so I can't even tell him.
Okay, we need somebody who can do sign language.
Search.
Is anyone really good at tech stuff?
Yeah, I can't
I'm
read
leftist,
sign.
so no.
Someone who can save our brother over here.
No, I can't hear. Okay.
Yeah, I got the data bluestone. Thank you.
I was trying to say we hear you. I don't think he understood what I was trying to say.
Well, he can't hear what we're trying to say. I
Well, I
DM'd
did
him.
sign language.
Everyone
I did
pretend to talk, but don't
we,
say anything.
Blah 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 blah. Very important. Need to hear. This is very important information that I'm saying right now.
Okay, well, we got, while he tries to fix his stuff, while you're all here, half of you, this is your first time on a WIC panel, so let me just kind of explain how it goes. I will introduce the topic, I'll say hi to my guests, my audience, and then we will have concise opening statements, not 5 to 10 minutes, I'm talking minute, maybe, right? And then we'll get into the open discussion. If you have a problem during the open discussion getting your point in or getting your voice heard, please let me see your hand, and I will try to facilitate you being able to speak, because I want everyone's perspective to be heard. If I tell you to stop talking, please stop talking, because I'm doing so not because of what you're saying, but because likely no one can understand what's going on because everyone's screaming at each other. So if that happens, please just listen to me. Don't try to fight me on this. Okay? Any questions?
I'm hearing a buzzing.
Like a fan or a microwave or something?
Something like that.
I think it's Lauren.
Yeah, hold on. Is
It's
it?
whoever L is.
You have to turn your pictures
Yeah.
off.
I have to turn my what off?
You have to turn your paintings off.
You can
If
turn
you have
on
a
noise
fan
suppression.
on, if you have a fan on, just move it away from the mic.
Hold on, I just fucked
Or it
up.
could just be crisp, right? You could just turn crisp on or whatever.
I got a fan in the background. Can you hear that? Is that fucking with my audio or no?
No.
No, it seems
No,
fine.
No?
you're
Okay.
looking.
Oh wait, my input volume's all the way. Mic test.
If you have push to talk, it won't be a problem. Oh, now we can't hear you. Your sensitivity is too low. So, is there any reason that someone wouldn't be able to hear us, but we'd be able to hear them in Discord? Because our friend Allie here is having a problem. Does anyone happen to know offhand why?
Well,
That would be a thing. I will try to communicate to them. Nope, no one knows. Great, this is wonderful. If anyone could steal some of this knowledge, that'd be based. But no, we're all sitting here, unable, unwilling, feckless, impotent.
I'm very willing. I just have no idea.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair
can
enough.
you repeat your question?
Yeah, is there a reason or setting or some kind of box that he checked or should not or should check that he hasn't checked before that would make it so that we can hear him, but he cannot hear us?
Does he have the wrong output?
Yeah.
Just check the output. Tell him to press the little button next to the microphone in the bottom right and just select the right output device.
Carl Marks, can you tell me which mic sounds better? The one that I'm currently using right now, or this one right
The first
now?
one. The
First
first
one.
one for sure.
This
And I'm
one.
Carl Max. I wanna know that I'm Carl Max. People get very confused here.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Okay, well, output on his laptop speakers are on. Don't know what to do at this point. He can hear people when they come in and out. What does that mean? I don't know.
That means he's got the right audio device selected on his computer, but not in Discord. Like, you can have it set to default to your headphones, and then you'll only hear, like, the entering or the muting sound, but you won't hear other people talking unless you select it in Discord. Make sure you selected it in Discord and not just, like, on his computer.
I pass that information on. We'll give him another minute. If it don't work, it don't work, and I'm sorry, and that's just how it's gonna be. The show must go on. But I will probably boot him and get one of my mods to troubleshoot with him while we carry on. But give him one more minute. Everyone ready for this? You got a high energy? Everyone's just sitting there like they're falling asleep already. Come on, wake up, drink some caffeine, do some jumping
What
jacks.
do you want us to do in the waiting room?
I don't know.
Start
All
screaming.
right, got it. Sorry about that, guys.
Okay, you can hear us now?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay. We can also hear us now. There's an echo, so I don't know if you want to turn down your volume or push put to talk. Or... I don't know how you want to handle that. Adjust it, because it will be annoying. Okay, fair enough. 6 o'clock. We are ready to go. Let's get this party started. Okay, welcome, one and all to yet another episode of WIC TV, a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. And today, gang, we have a show for you. Shoplifting, theft, stealing. Under what conditions
Banditry.
is it acceptable to steal, and from whom? Is it ever okay to steal? Is stealing actually praxis in some certain cases? We're going to find out, and we have brought together a team of lovely individuals to discuss this and it should be fun. We have some first-time guests on my show, but not first time I've seen most of them. And I think to start, we are going to go to Ali. Go ahead. Is it Ali? Ali? I don't know how to say your name.
Ali?
Ali? I'll try to
Yeah.
remember that. What's your take here? Give us a brief opening, please.
Yeah, so it's like, I'm not trying to say that like stealing is always justified. It's not that you should steal. It's not that stealing is good. I just don't necessarily love the virtue signaling over seeing someone stealing and then people going all crazy over it. Especially when it comes to like people stealing from like bigger companies or corporations. They're trying to convince you that they're the victim in the situation, when it's like, it doesn't really matter. Theft and shrinkage and all of that only accounts for like 3% of the losses incurred by the company, and these are like losses that are already expected by the company, which is why insurances don't cover it. It wouldn't make any sense. Plus, the companies would already inflate those prices if that were to happen. And then like the amount of shoplifting that happens is ultimately negligible. Like, it's a victimless crime. No one is actually being affected. I know people are going to say that the workers or the community is being affected, and that's usually at the hands of the company. So I don't see how that's the shoplifter's fault. And then for people going out and like, as a customer, you have absolutely no responsibility to follow a shoplifter, report on them. If you see someone stealing, no, you didn't.
Okay, thanks for being here, gang. Ali's coming in hot with the theft takes. We'll see how it goes. Lauren, what do you think?
Oh, okay. Well, I disagree with everything Ali said. Like, just from the get-go, everything he said was just wrong. Yes, except for the part where he tried to straw man my argument, where he's like, "Oh, they'll say that the communities and the workers are being hurt." Fuck yeah, I will. The communities and the workers will be getting hurt. Like, look at San Francisco, for instance. They're taking away Walgreens. They're taking away so many grocery stores. I don't want to hear another liberal use the word food desert in referenced in San Francisco ever again, because it is because of the shoplifting that you promote by not prosecuting and by turning the other way, as Ali promoted, which causes the food deserts that you struggle from, which is why y'all are obese and eat McDonald's. No, there's so many losses to the communities. That's why the kids are fat, because of the food deserts. You have so many losses to pretty much everyone involved, including the shoplifter.
What are you, a fucking
Thanks for
liberal?
being here, and we're gonna have an interesting discussion. I can tell already. Karl Marx, not to be confused with Karl Marx. Go ahead.
Thank you, Wick. Now, my opinion is that shoplifting, though it can often be unnecessary for people from certain groups, for people from others, it can be, I think, pretty justified. There are 10% of Americans living in food insecurity. Plenty of people who end up going hungry, have meals, end up skipping meals because they can't afford to have more. And in a system that permits that kind of thing, especially when it affects like kids and pretty innocent people, I think shoplifting is a pretty valid way out of that. So yeah, that's my belief.
Well, we'll get into it as we go. Thanks for being here. Looking forward to it in the future. President Sunday. Long time no see.
Hey. So, as my esteemed colleague or enemy on the upper left, I'm still not entirely sure, has argued, I think quite eloquently, there is no ethical basis for stepping at shoplifting as a social ill. It is a symptom of something actually grave and unethical on the part of entities with actual power. The basic products we rely on are acquired by large retailers through vicious exploitation, and people are de facto extorted out of a basic standard of living and dignity by unnecessarily high prices. However, shoplifting under certain conditions can impact the community negatively by providing the propagandistic pretext for increased policing, and the outrageous spectacle of some instances of ridiculous or frivolous appearing acts of shoplifting can turn lower-class people against one another in favor of their own surveillance. As ethically concerned commentators, I think we should turn a blind eye to shoplifting, as its root is ultimately in more systemic injustices that will not be solved by increased policing or surveillance, but by the same token, certain kinds of shoplifting that deprive other members of the community of products, for instance, or create a propagandistic boon to pro-police and surveillance advocates, should be discouraged, because these in fact turn the working class against each other and against their own interests by extension.
Okay. Thank you for being here, and we'll get into it as we go. Lorderbox, what you got?
As a couple of very wise debaters once said to me on the internet, even if you can imagine a perfectly ethical and no issues incestuous relationship, it's probably worth considering what would happen if this was applied as a general rule. And the general problem with incestuous relationships is that you get basically a minefield of abuse and problematic relationships, which is probably why it's better to have it as a general rule. Don't do it. By the same token, shoplifting, if normalized, can lead to shops closing. It can lead to prices going up. It can lead to what often goes with increased shoplifting is increased violence against staff and other issues. So yeah, the victims of shoplifting are usually directly or indirectly the staff and the other people shopping there. Not a good thing to do. Generally, don't do it.
Feeling bad, brave take. We'll see how it works out for him. Last, but certainly not least, someone who hasn't been on in a while, but we're glad to have him back. Straighterade, what you got?
So my opening statement really is not to defend shoplifting, merely to state that it is not all theft or shoplifting is created equal. And to anybody who thinks that any upticks in shoplifting is the result of personal pathologies like kleptomania or OCD, that really isn't what leads people to shoplift entirely. People do shoplift out of need, of desperation, or a perceived sense of desperation or deprivation. And even earlier when somebody said that, like, about they were talking about shrinkage, which is how shoplifting is usually estimated, you said it amounts for 3%. It's actually not even that much. It's usually about 1.4%, and that's according to the National Retail Foundation. And even from there, you can break up retail shrink to 3 different sections, which is theft done by people like customers, theft done by employees, employers themselves, and then items lost to damage. So we're talking about 0.47% of things being shoplifted annually. And if anybody's even worried about that, there is currently legislation, the Combating Organized Retail Crime Act of 2023, which sits in both the Senate and the House, that is attempting to target this. So anybody who thinks that this country is suddenly going soft on crime or like punitive measures related to shoplifting, you're wrong. And wouldn't it make more sense that people who are shoplifting, would you rather hand them a jail or prison sentence for what is usually a non-violent crime, or just the resources that they probably need? So, you know, as to quote the great MLK, you know, shoplifting is the language of the unheard, you know?
Okay, so if someone is shoplifting, just give them more stuff and they will stop. Brave take. We'll see how it goes. And with that, the floor is open. Just try to no slurs, nothing toss, but otherwise go for it. What are you thinking?
We just get some obvious ones out of the way.
People, if they get caught stealing and shoplifting.
Say that one more time, Alec.
When did I say that you shouldn't get caught? Like, you shouldn't be prosecuted for shoplifting or stealing if you're caught.
Who are you talking to?
Lauren, you said that I said that. Yeah, you said that I said that people shouldn't be prosecuted that when they're caught shoplifting.
You said that you should look the other way.
I said if you're a customer. If you're a bystander, yeah, why are you? How are you going to prosecute anybody? Why should you go out of your way to report somebody or like?
Let me ask you this: if you watch someone commit murder against another person, are you going to call them in?
Yeah.
Okay, you know you're not legally required to, right?
Yes.
Okay, so in the same sense, you're not legally required to call in shoplifters, but you are morally required.
I don't think you're morally required. You're morally required to call in a victim of murder or like a murder that's happening 100%. There's an actual victim like right there. Who's the victim when you're shoplifting? Who's the victim when you're shoplifting?
People that you're stealing from.
Who?
Just point of information, this is not universally the case. So, for example, I'm reading here off of TorontoDefenseLawyers.com. I don't know if that's under Section 22 of the Criminal Code of Canada. If an individual has an awareness of a crime because they've witnessed the crime or have been told the crime has occurred, and by not reporting this crime to the police service or other relevant agency, this individual is in some way aiding or abetting the crime to take place, they may be charged with counseling an offense. Sorry, Ezra.
Canada is different than America. So are we talking about American law or Canadian law?
Well, we're talking generally. I'm in Canada.
Well,
he's in the UK.
We can argue the legality. I'm more interested in the morality, to be clear.
He's in the Shire.
You said I think, Ali, in the beginning of your opening statement, you said that if you see shoplifting, you didn't. Was that not what you said at the end of your statement?
Yeah.
So, but you are okay with shoplifters getting prosecuted?
If you get caught, yeah, absolutely.
But how are they going to get caught if you see shoplifting, you didn't?
Security
gonna- who
measure. The store should have security. The security would catch the shoplifter. It's not
So
up to the
security
customer.
should
It's not up to
catch
the,
shoplifters
not
and
up
they
to
should
the
get
customer to put
prosecuted.
themselves in danger by out here trying to report, record, or follow the shoplifter. That makes no sense.
Yeah, the customers are allowed to do what they will in order to help the store owner that is the victim in this particular case. Now, it's up to each individual customer to determine how much they care about it, but if they care enough to, protect someone else's property, they're allowed to.
And then put themselves in danger.
Can I ask the panel, what is y'all's
Okay.
threshold before you would report shoplifting that you're seeing somebody in the commission of?
I would do anything I could to report it and prevent it.
Even
If you
kill.
saw, even if you saw
that.
like a mother stealing baby formula, would you report that?
Yeah.
Especially
Or like a father stealing socks?
the
follow
criminality
a
will
person
leach
and
into the
record them?
formula and corrupt the child. I got a
Well,
quick
first of all, I
question.
would try to stop them. If I saw like a mother stealing formula, I'd probably stop her and try to talk to her, possibly buy it for her. But like at the
Possibly.
same time,
Maybe.
it would really depend on the circumstance.
And
Like,
what if you're attacked by the shoplifter?
What?
what's your point?
You're assuming that this is a responsibility that we should all take, that we're morally responsible
Not what I
to.
said. I said each shoplifter has their own ability to determine how much they're willing to care about the owner of the store, and they're making their own determinations based off the situation. But for you to blatantly say that all people shopping should not make it their concern, and that
Not
it should
their
be
concern.
Okay, part of living in society is that it is your concern for the people around you to make sure that you care about your general citizen.
That is
If
an
you're just
excellent
saying
point.
not-
Lauren, can I ask you a question? Would you be offended if I asked you a particular question?
Yes.
Suppose somebody had somebody locked in their basement making a product for them that they then sold on the street. Would you do anything to stop them from doing so?
Wait, stop them from keeping the person
From keeping the
restrained?
person locked in their basement, making a product for them that they then sell on the street. What lengths would you
I
go to
would
stop
do
that
anything
person?
in my power to
Anything in your
help
power,
people
really.
kidnap.
So if, for
Help
example,
her.
if you walked into a Walmart and you saw boxes saying "Made in Bangladesh," and you knew that week a fire had killed all the workers inside of a Bangladeshi sweatshop supplying Walmart because they had locked the doors on them, you would do anything to stop that.
Yeah, I would do anything in my power to stop that.
Well, I mean, have you? It's been a few years now.
Yeah, I mean, I boycott certain places that do child labor.
You would just not buy from the kidnapper with
let
the
her
kid in his
answer the
basement.
question though.
All right.
I do everything with, like, as I keep saying, I do everything within my power. Now, if I were in Bangladesh, if I had the ability to open the door, if I had the ability to call the police, I would do that as well. If I had the ability to stop them, I would do anything within my power to help the people. I try to buy responsibly.
What if,
I try not to buy fast
what about-
fashion.
what about-
I try not
what
to buy
about-
fashion made by
What about appropriating
slaves.
appropriating the product to keep them from profiting from doing so in the future?
appropriate? You mean copyright infringement or patent infringement?
No, he
What are you
means
Like
stealing.
shoplifting.
No, I meant copyright infringement.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I would be against copyright infringement, and I would do anything in
Base.
my
All
power.
right, go on.
as an
Sorry, as you were.
attorney.
Okay.
I just want to
Go
say
ahead,
that when
Lauren.
I hear someone say if you see someone shoplifting you didn't, that sounds like you're saying the shoplifting is okay. That's why they
No, not at all. I don't think that's
customer
prescriptive.
can-
I don't think that's
was me
prescriptive
with
at
all
all.
that.
Let Loner go. Let Loner go. Come on, we gotta get
Okay,
to
sorry.
space. Go ahead.
because yeah, I think usually when people say that, it sounds like they're saying it because they think shoplifters shouldn't get in trouble. But like, obviously, if you're in the shop, you don't have a moral obligation to stop the shoplifter. But it's like if you want, the question is like, if you want to, are you okay with them just going up to security and being like that person shoplifted? Because when you say if you see a shoplifter, you didn't. It sounds like you're saying they shouldn't do that.
I think
So
the,
yeah, if you
can
feel like it's your responsibility to go out of your way and follow someone and report on them and take that risk, I mean, sure, that's 100% up to you. Like, and I just don't understand why you would. And I don't think it's a prescriptive measure. I'm not saying people should shoplift. I'm just saying that the responsibility isn't on the client, and honestly, it isn't even on the workers most of the time. It's on the business. If you have a shoplifting issue, hire security. If you don't, if the cost of security is outweighing.
I want to respond to Box very quickly, and then I'm going to be silent for the next 30
Yeah,
minutes.
so I'm just
okay?
saying that the cost of security outweighs the cost
Great.
the loss incurred by shoplifting. It doesn't matter. So
Okay,
then, yeah.
okay. When people say you didn't see it, they're not saying prescriptively you should all go out and shoplift. What they're saying is that you, as an observer, under a situation which people are being intensely exploited. Prices are rising ahead of inflation. There are reasons you cannot perceive why an individual might be doing this that might actually be really important and might actually have... reporting it might cause significantly more negative overall, you just don't know. If you see somebody shoplifting, especially food, you didn't. That's not saying prescriptively, hey, you should go shoplift. That's saying you as an observer, all you see is the surface level act of shoplifting. Don't get involved.
Yeah, so I guess it comes to a question of threshold, because I think most people, maybe not Lauren, but most people are probably okay with, like, if you're hungry, you should steal, like, stealing a loaf of bread is probably fine. If you're a mother who can't afford... If you're a mother who can't afford baby formula, I think I'm just speaking on behalf of like most people. I think because I think most people are probably okay with stealing baby formula if like you can't afford it, otherwise your kid's gonna like be malnourished.
Why can't you go to a soup kitchen? Why can't you get food in legitimate processes? Why can't you beg for food?
I'm posing a hypothetical.
Beg for money. There's nothing wrong with asking for money.
I'm posing a hypothetical, which is when there's no alternative. So Lauren, if the only thing you can do is steal a loaf of bread or you will starve, is it okay to steal a loaf of bread?
Then that's never the only thing you could do.
Okay, but that's why it's a hypothetical.
Okay.
It's a hypothetical. That's the point in a hypothetical.
Lauren.
It's to demonstrate the
The
principle.
point of a hypothetical.
Okay, but Lauren, it's not...
Yeah, telling people they should beg instead of steal is a wild thing to know.
And we have to... Karl Marx has been patiently...
It's the Ebenezer Scrooge, are there not prisons argument.
But we will... I want to make sure Loner got to finish their point, and if Loner has finished their point, then we're gonna go and kick it to Max.
Not quite. I think that's the boring part of the argument. I think the more interesting part of the argument is the fact that like it seems to be the case that a lot of shoplifting is either for profit or just because of people doing it for a kick. I think there was a study from 2008 that found that actually people who earn more than $70,000 a year are more likely to steal than people who earn less than $20,000. And people talking about as if it's like language of the unheard or some kind of praxis, I just don't buy that at all. I think normalized shoplifting hurts consumers, not
the studies I've looked at, it tends to oscillate. It tends to oscillate between the lowest earners, and then slightly higher than that, they seem to shoplift less. Than slightly higher than that, it's weird.
Max.
Yeah.
Max.
Okay. I want to say on the point of like food, soup kitchens and that kind of thing. There has been data on this in the United States, the 2020 United States Hunger Atlas. They revealed that 22.5% of feeding programs were forced to turn people away, and 11% of them reported that they didn't even have enough food to distribute. So to act like you can always just go somewhere else, especially if you're in a place with high poverty and high hunger, you will have more people dependent on it, and especially if the economy's more fucked, then you're gonna have a sudden like upturn in people going there, and it's gonna be hard to distribute enough resources. So to act like there's always another option isn't really accurate.
In America, it's very unlikely that you're going to have to steal to eat, though, right?
No, this is from America. I'm referencing American data.
No, but
I think the thing that's important to like draw attention to though is that the majority of people who shoplift, even out of need, like for example, if you need food, you need toiletries, hygienic materials, basic necessities, it's way easier to get away with stealing items that you can resell and then take that money and feed yourself or depend on it, as opposed to trying to steal a whole loaf of bread, which is worth $3.50. You can just easily conceal 3 DVDs, a video game, or something like that. The difficulty is that from the vantage point of everybody else, nobody has any way of assessing whether or not you're stealing Halo 3 or like something petty, because you're intending to like sell it to a fence or organized retail operation or just somebody on the street for cash quickly, or you're doing it for petty personal consumption.
Just to add to that,
then it's okay to steal anything.
What's the point?
Then anything you can steal is okay.
No.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm trying
one at a time. I know I'm liking this energy. I do, but I can't hear everyone when everyone tries to speak over each other. Lorna, respond. I see you, Lauren. I will get to you. I promise. But I want to do the Straighterade and Loner back and forth for a brief moment, please.
Well, yeah, because if you say someone is stealing like all the razors because they're very small and expensive and you can sell them on the black market or whatever, well, then even we can say, well, we don't know if they're doing that to feed an entire family and otherwise they'll be all malnourished and shit like that. But then that means like you should turn a blind eye to all shoplifting. because
no,
you
that's
never
not
know.
what follows from what I'm saying. I'm just talking about the ambiguity of the situation, and that if we're only going to make the assessment that we know for sure this group of shoplifters is stealing based off of need, and the way that we assess that is the materials that they're actually shoplifting, and it has to be certain items like food or whatever. I think there's still going to actually be people that fall into the like shoplifting out of need category, but they're literally trying to get like the most out of the crime, right? So again, like why are they going to try to shoplift an entire carton of eggs when you can shoplift a different way and turn it into a more lucrative thing? This is why so much crime. Like,
well, so my
shoplifting
question
leads
to you
like,
then, my question to you would be that if someone is stealing, like again, if someone's just stealing a bunch of like razors, then and yeah, there's a non-zero chance that they're doing it out of what you think is need, then what should happen to people who shoplift like just any product? Should they just be left to do it, or what do you think the moral right should be there?
No, I think it's very difficult because if you're asking me like what I would do in that personal situation, and this kind of feeds off of what Ali was saying earlier, which is I think he was kind of placing like asking people who feel that who are making the prescription that it's a moral compulsion that like you must prescribe to people to report them to security or whatever. He's like, why not? What obligation do you have to report that? Because you are not actually bound by any legal or monetary contract with that employer or whatever. If you're doing that, I guess you're just going off the kind of like a golden rule of do unto others as you would do unto you, and you don't want people to steal from you, so you should do it. Like, would I personally do it? No, I wouldn't report anybody for shoplifting. But
so that's the
I will
easy
say
question,
I wouldn't begrudge anybody who reported them.
So yeah, that's what I'm asking is what you think should happen to them, not what you as a bystander would do yourself or what other costs, but like what should there be a penalty for stealing the entire shelf of razors or not?
Catch
Basically,
them.
Well, should there
Hire
be
security if you have a problem with shoplifting?
Well, they do. Should they do, and they've done so.
do.
This is one of the
They
problems
have that
I
cause
highlight.
the raise in
So-
prices, which causes.
So
That's
very-
not the cause of
I want to
increase
give
of
Lauren a
prices.
space. Lauren, go ahead. Sunday, I see you in the wings. You're next. Lauren,
Okay,
What were you
so I have
saying?
so
Go ahead,
many
your space.
issues with so many things that have been said. It's hard to like. But let's just start with Straighterrade's necessity angle here, where they're in so dire need of food that they're stealing, hundreds of $100 items in order to resell later. Do you know like the process it takes to resell later? It's not instantaneous. So the determination of need, necessity, hunger, true pain and hunger until you need food is not going to be the type of planning where you're stealing large items and then reselling it later for like
Hey,
if
Lauren.
you're truly to the point of hunger in which you feel the need to steal.
Lauren,
Most people
Lauren,
don't allow themselves to get to that point, though.
how-
is what
how-
I'm saying. The
how-
majority of people won't actually wait till they're starving before they start committing
Well,
crimes.
then it's not a need thing. Then
Lauren,
it's
I got a
want
question
thing.
for you. I got a question for you. How deep must an individual be able to insert their finger between their ribs before it becomes need?
You need to be dying.
There you go. Yeah.
They need to be hungry enough where they're not able to withstand the hunger.
Really?
pains
So you mean
of
hungry enough where they
self-harm.
can't work, they can't clothe themselves, they can't raise their kids, they can't pay for their bills, etc., etc.? That doesn't seem very
If they're going to
very
start
socially
stealing,
positive. It seems like a
if they're going to start
disaster.
stealing and we're going to make it morally okay to steal at this point, they're so
But it is morally
hungry
okay to
that they
steal. The
can't
things that
even
they are stealing are the
it's
products of
not
vast
morally okay to
vast
wear
degrees
it.
of theft on a scale no shoplifter is capable of replicating.
Why is it not okay for me to steal from you?
Why is it not
Because
okay
there's
for
an
you to steal
immediate
from me?
victim. There's an effect immediately to the person that
Subspecie
you're stealing from. Versus when you
aeternitatis, the
steal from a
universe
store or
obviously
a
doesn't
corporation,
register
there's
a
no
difference.
effect taken.
There's two people talking at once.
My bad.
Why don't you try that again?
You're counting for 3%. Like I said, 1.4 to 3% of losses incurred by these companies due to theft by outside external sources. There's no actual victim here. When you steal from Walmart, no one is
are
actually
actual
being who's being hurt when you steal from a Walmart or from a
Lauren,
Okay,
Lauren,
let me
how
tell
much
you-
money do you
let me
think
tell you
Walmart
who's being
made?
hurt. Let me tell you who's being
No,
hurt.
that's not the
from
question.
I
The
wanna-
question
yeah,
is
I
how
wanna-
much
That was
profit
the
percentage does they
question.
make, right?
well, let her.
What about our shareholders, Bob?
You gotta let her answer. She's been a little dogpiled out. I'm gonna give her some more space so she can respond to all of you. You all get a chance,
think
I
it's
promise.
talking about-
But you gotta give her space. Let's go. Let's hear you.
Wait, the people who are hurt The shoplifting in the immediate is the store owner. So like if it's a franchise store, it would be the owner of that store. And then if it's, so you could just scale this up, scale it down, right? He's laughing, but he has an issue and I individually rob him. But what if he has a family? So now it's a familial.
On guard, bring it.
No, now I'm saying.
That's a joke. I do.
You don't have it. So okay, if I rob one person, it's an issue. If I rob,
but if you rob 100 people and burn them down inside a sweatshop,
let her go. Let her go.
Sure.
It's wild. I like literally can't even get a sentence in. So you're trying to say like there's some sort of scale of number of people in which it makes it okay in order to commit the thefts. However, it's not okay because it doesn't matter the scale. It's still affecting, and even when it's large scale, then it doesn't just affect one person, it affects a large plethora of people, and whether or not you think they're wealthy enough that they could withstand it, they're going to have to take their stores and remove their stores from certain locations. You see this in San Francisco in particular. You see Walgreens closing. You see Nordstrom's closing.
Can we talk about Walgreens for a second?
Let her finish.
Can we talk about the Walgreens?
Okay. Of Nordstrom.
She's been monologuing Wick. Like she's had a lot of time to talk. I think Max should be allowed to reply.
This hurts the people that shop at Nordstrom's.
Would you then then you question why it's happening so specifically in that neighborhood? No, why isn't that not happening en masse everywhere?
It's happening all over the country. So
not enough where places are shutting down regularly. Most companies are not shutting down because of theft.
Okay, gang. I don't want to. I like the back and forth, but if I have to, I'm going to start muting people who aren't. It's not their turn.
Well, yeah,
I don't know if I had the screaming capacity for this.
I thought we were doing the back and
forth. Otherwise referred to as external theft is responsible for 37% of retail shrink. According to the most recent survey, retail shrinkage has become a $100 billion issue in 2021.
100 billion out of how much though?
$3 billion a year. Last year, Walmart reported $3 billion loss due to shrinkage. They also made $611 billion due to revenue. So I mean, like,
wait. If you're doing numbers, there's only one number that matters.
That's why they're shutting down stores.
There's only one number that matters because we're talking about enough shoplifting to close a store, which has happened. The question is for the Marxist economists and all that shit. Like, what's the profit rate of an average grocery retailer? Percentage.
Can we talk?
Wait,
10% or less?
You guys are conflating shrinkage.
Does anyone know? I just need to answer that question.
I'm conflating shrinkage with shoplifting. Yes.
I haven't had a panel that this was this hard to moderate in a while. I did not expect this, but we'll go with it.
I'm sorry we disappointed you,
That's
Wick.
a good question. No, you haven't disappointed me. This is good. Loaderbox had a question. I want Max to take the first shot at it, and Max also wanted to talk about Walgreens. I'm curious where he wants to go with that. Let's go in that order.
Someone can tell me the profit rate of the average grocery retailer?
Before we continue, can I just ask one question? Raise of hands for everybody. It's a raise of hands question.
Concise, brief.
Have you ever shoplifted in your life? Anyone here?
My understanding of the data on Walgreens is that they overpaid security. They ramped up the security to a crazy amount, and that was actually the cause of them leaving.
Well, I don't even know what Max is about to say. So
sorry, the Walgreens executive said that he complained too much. They literally they shut down. They said in January this is not petty theft. It's actually gangs going into our stores and stealing stuff. It's a real issue. And then a year later, he rolled that back and he said probably we put in too much and we might step back a little bit from that. He said of security staffing, the company has found private security guards to be largely ineffective in deterring theft. So instead it's putting up more and more enforcement officers. They basically said that they bitch too much and Walgreens has more, loses more to theft than like other companies do, right? So
this goes against your argument because Ali was saying that the solution to all of this is, well, if you're having issues with theft, then hire more security. Well, if the security is ineffective and it's costly,
well, the solution isn't to do that. You're approaching the issue at the head, right? You need to take it at the stem. There's a reason that a lot of these people are shoplifting, right? They're not just doing it out of nowhere.
Do you think most of the shoplifting is done by people who are like starving though? Because if you look at the most commonly shoplifted goods, it's like games, laptops, alcohol, like meat, cheese, coffee.
Yeah, meat, cheese, coffee, fucking baby formula, that kind of thing. There are a
Alcohol.
lot of things that are stolen that are very, very necessary.
Is coffee necessary?
Yes.
Point of fact.
Is alcohol
yes, for a
necessary?
lot of
Just
people,
really
yes.
quick,
If they have
stop,
night shifts, coffee
everyone.
will be necessary.
This is a thing that I did look up and I have confirmed.
Cloves
Baby
aren't
formula
necessary. We
is
can work
usually-
without
is
cloves.
used to cut drugs.
Our forefathers
They
did
steal
so.
baby-
They worked in the mines, dangling.
I will mute you because no one's listening to me when I'm talking, and you're not going to do that to me.
Quiet.
Okay,
Please.
so yeah, baby formula is stolen primarily to cut drugs. Most of the people stealing baby formula aren't trying to feed their babies. They're doing it because it's a safe, effective way to cut their drugs so they actually have less drug to sell. That's why
What's
they're
the
doing
source?
it.
Yeah,
I
what
can
is
get
the
it
source?
to
How would you
later.
determine this?
Aaron, I have a
What?
question for Aaron.
How would,
Wait,
Aaron,
Lauren, I
why-
had one
I
for
would-
you. Do you think that Walgreens is more likely to shut down because of competitors like Amazon or because of loss incurred through retail theft?
Loss incurred through retail theft in certain locations, especially.
Okay, I
like,
disagree. I
like,
think
where
what is putting
where I
Walgreens out of
just
business is other
where I
competitors
just was
like e-commerce
yesterday,
and
where
Amazon.
I literally walked into a Walgreens yesterday and interviewed the person who worked.
I don't
there
care about your
about why
anecdotes.
they were
No one here
The
cares about your
Walgreens in my
anecdotes.
neighborhoods are doing fine.
Yeah, if I
Wait,
told
Aaron,
you
Aaron, why haven't you shoplifted?
because I have no need to.
Coward.
Okay, then Allie,
Why haven't you
have
shoplifted?
I'm not gonna lie. There have been
I'm
times
Wait,
where
wait,
I didn't.
wait, really quick. I want to know why Lauren hasn't shoplifted before.
because I'm morally against it.
So brave. Okay,
Whoa.
Allie, continue.
I mean, honestly,
But-
there was just
but-
times where
but
I was
Lauren-
younger, I wanted something, I didn't have the money for
Lauren-
it. I took it.
Lauren, are you morally
Wait, what-
against? Are you morally against purchasing products from companies that engage in slave labor to supply their shelves? But you,
Oh, wait, are you?
but you
are-
do. But you do.
No, I don't.
Yes, you
Yes,
do.
you do.
Where's your
What-
Where's your
what
shirt
do I
from?
look
What
like?
brand is the jacket you're wearing right now, or the sweater, whatever it is?
This is from California Aggies. This is my
California
UCLA
Aggies.
sweater.
Research time. How do you spell that?
I'm just going to
Okay,
be
well-
quick and say that like child labor has a lot
This is
less
my
to do with
UC
most
Davis
consumer goods than you
sweater.
guys all think. But okay.
Well, it's just
Like,
child labor,
you can
slave
look at the
labor.
example from you can look at the example of New York City. Like I think in New York City, I think like a third of the shoplifting arrests involved like less than 350 people. So yeah, you can say, but like the people who are like I guess the not so anti shoplifting side, what do you think should be done about that? Because so far from Aaron,
They've
we've
been
got
arrested-
like,
they
well,
were
I
arrested over
wouldn't say anything about it,
6,000
but I don't know what.
times.
Let Loner
Let him
really quick.
finish.
Gang.
So
you
my
gotta let
question
Loner
to all of
finish
you
the
guys is
question,
for
these-
then you can
so I
answer it. Loner,
So I
go
guess
ahead.
from Aaron, I got something that sounded like kind of like a vague. Well, we don't know if they're doing it to feed families or to just make a profit. So I wouldn't do anything.
true.
But what do you think
The other
should be
reason
done
why
to
is
them?
I'm
That's
not
the,
going.
I never got an answer
I'm
to
not
that
going to
question.
risk my.
I-
I'm not
No,
going to
no,
risk my personal safety to stop a shoplifter. I have
I'm
no
not
idea
asking-
if they're armed or not.
The easy question, which no one is asking, is
you
what you would
accept-
do personally. It's what you think.
I
should
wanna
be
answer
done.
this.
Should
I
there
wanna
be a
answer
penalty
this.
for
Can I
Loner
accept
shoplifting
this?
or no?
Weren't these same 237 individual? Chill. Weren't these same 237 individuals arrested over 6,000 times?
Okay, but can I answer
Yes,
this?
but they were not. They haven't been prosecuted. That's why they keep
Oh, wait,
reoffending.
whose fault is that?
Loner, would you allow
That's
me
what
to
I'm
answer?
asking you. I'm
They
asking
should
what
be
you
Okay, I wanna
prosecuted.
answer
They were
this.
caught.
I wanna
They
answer
should
this
have been
seriously.
done. That's the issue. What's the problem?
I want to
Should they be
answer this
jailed?
seriously. I
Yeah,
want
they
to
should
answer.
be jailed. Yes. What's wrong with being
Karl
jailed?
Marx,
What's wrong with
no, no,
that?
so yes,
A
okay,
lot's
so
wrong
Karl
with
Marx,
being
do you think they
jailed,
should be
dude.
jailed?
Chill.
Oh, wait, chill. I'm trying to hear him. What?
Stop. I want Allie and Lonerbox. That's the only people I want to hear from right now. Lonerbox and Allie. Go. I'll leave.
So
Sorry.
I
Bye-bye.
got one
But he's
answer. They should be
nuts.
jailed. I agree. So Karl Marx, should they be jailed?
should they be jailed?
Yeah, repeat
Wait,
shoplifters.
wait.
Yeah.
Repeat shoplifters?
People who
no,
shoplift,
I mean,
like,
you
en
should probably
masse.
find a different solution, right?
Okay, Aaron.
That's our solution.
Repeat the question.
The shoplifters who are making up like a third of the arrests in New York City, should they be jailed or what should be done to them?
No, I don't support punitive measures for nonviolent offenses usually, and the majority of shoplifting is not done through violent means. And I'm also not going to
Fined?
conflate like armed robbery with
Hold on.
shoplifting. Armed robbery is
Hold
with
on.
shoplifting.
So should they be fined
Hold
or?
on. I have a question.
I
So,
want to
Aaron,
respond to
you don't
Loner.
support
I still want to
any-
respond to Loner. Can I?
You will all get a chance.
Can I
We'll go
first?
in order. Loner's asking everyone the question. He's about to ask you next. All you have to do is wait. Loner, continue asking your question.
Yeah, so I'm asking then, like, should they be fined then, or what? Do you think there should be any deterrence at all, or is it just
No,
like we just
fines,
accept it
community
and
ser-
fuck the
no.
corporations?
No, fines,
make them
community
pay more
service.
money.
There's other mechanisms of deterring crime, but a lot of these are just band-aid solutions. In general, I don't support carceral solutions to like most crime. No.
Karl Marx?
What if people should go to prison? I already answered that, right? I mean,
No, but like, what
you
else
should-
in place of prison if you're not
Oh, what else in place of prison?
Yeah.
Oh, like rehabilitative measures. I mean, you have like 10% of the American population living in food insecurity. I think these people, given that 70% of shoplifters, according to the data that I've got here, are people who are concerned about money. I think if you do actually help them out to get the stuff that they need, they'll probably be better off. But a lot of like the food programs, welfare programs in America are like dysfunctional and thus end up leading to more crime, right? So you need to fix these things in order to reduce it.
Okay, Sunday. Go ahead.
What should be done to people who shoplift? We're not necessarily taking a moral status like from the eye of God when we're saying that something should be done to people who shoplift or something shouldn't be done to people who shoplift. What we are saying is that in a situation in which we as individual subjects with our limited understanding of the individuals involved, their perspective and their circumstance, etc., you are risking causing somebody in a vulnerable situation extreme levels of irreparable harm if you turn them in. You are not risking that if you don't. That's the key distinction. Nobody is saying that therefore nothing should be done to these people. The stores have their own self-interest. You can't argue that they should act against it. Obviously, from the vantage of their own survival, they have to act in a way that stops shoplifting, etc., etc. There's no argument against that. Like, it's just, it is what it is. But from the vantage of someone who presumably has empathy for the average human being, if you don't know the exact circumstances of the individual who is stealing food or whatever off the shelf, because all of these things, that's the nature of commodities, they can be turned into food down the line, or turned into the conditions of working or being a productive or functional member of society. Don't. There's no purpose to, for two reasons. First of all, the aforementioned, you don't know what damage you're doing to that individual or to other individuals upon whom they depend. Secondly, you're doing so in the defense of organizations whose product and whose place on this earth are not mandated by God. They are the product of either past deprivations or ongoing ones. Case in point, once again, I'm going to refer to this over and over again. Most of our clothing, the reason why it's so cheap and why we can have like 10 different shirts of the same kind for under $100 is because somebody in some really hot place in some dingy room was sewing that for pennies on the hour.
I respond to that.
Please, be my guest.
And then
Can I make a
know
point
that,
after that?
Yep. Then so here's what we're gonna do. Loner is gonna have some back and forth with Sunday for a little bit. Then we're gonna Max. Then we're gonna Lauren. Then we're gonna Straighterade. The Straighterade is a question for Loner too. So
I know,
that's the order we're gonna go in. Please don't make me mute you. Please, let's have a discussion here. Go ahead.
I'll try to be succinct, but I know that the default progressive response to any kind of crime is just that it has to be because of some kind of like poverty or desperation or something like that. But the fact is that one other thing that any criminologist will agree on that causes certain crimes to increase is if they can do it and get away with it, which seems to be the case with shoplifting. Like, it seems to be the most common complaint you hear from every retailer or other customers or communities is that it's very easy to just go into a shop and just lift like thousands of dollars or pounds worth of stuff and then fuck off. And that is a problem. And the people who suffer for that are not the corporations. They can just raise their prices. It's that cost gets offset to other customers. It might result in shops closing, which has happened, and that means that people have to go further away to get their food. So it affects the people around them. It affects the people in their community.
I agree with you.
And it's with crime situations like that. You can see this with other situations like the knife epidemic in Glasgow, for example, like in the 2000s. Like the way that you can also respond to these crime things is not just assume it's all out of need or desperation. You can also say that there is a level of deterrence that's not there, and you can take, for example, the 1/3 of shoplifting arrests that came from just 300 people in New York City, and either use some kind of punitive measure to set an example, whether that's like a very hefty fine to let people know you can't just shoplift for a living, or to jail them. Like,
sure. Well, fundamentally, what we're dealing with is an interaction between two bodies of people, one of whom has definitely committed theft for the sake of profit alone, one of which that's ambiguous. And so that's the nature of my argumentation. One of the reasons why in my opening statement I point out that there are types of shoplifting that are frivolous or create the spectacle that is then used propagandistically to increase surveillance upon their communities generally, or to deprive their fellow members of product. I don't know if I mentioned that specifically. But like, obviously, yeah, of course, just like any human action, it's going to have to be constrained by certain limits for it to be within the bounds of ethicality. But that's not going to be within the bounds of the law. Case in point, Walmart operates legally, yet once again it employs slavery. I think you would agree with this. So I don't think we're necessarily in disagreement. I think what we're in disagreement with is that there is a commensurateness, if that's a word, between people abiding by the law when it comes to the acquisition of products in society and ethicality. I think the one common thread between everybody on this side of the argument is that that is deeply ambiguous, and therefore, if there is a single if there is a single response that follows from reporting people who you observe at only the surface level of having engaged in that acquisition, it would be more responsible to not report them than to do so, because while you may, in the case of a shoplifter, catch somebody who is engaging in some kind of unjust harm against another person, you absolutely are in the case of vying for the person who runs the store.
If you see something, say something. Seems to counteract that. But Max,
if you see something, say something seems to counteract that. What?
I wanted to.
Well, hang on, Wick. No, you responded to that. You're not a moderator anymore. Now you're a participant. What did you say?
I'm fucking around with you, Max.
But what did you mean? But what did you mean, Wick?
I'm making a quip so people give me money. Go ahead. Max.
Okay, I wanted to make note because you said that baby formula is often stolen for drugs. I want to make note that single mothers are the highest proportion of people living in food insecurity. 1 in 4 households of a single mother with a child is food insecure, and they're double that when you like compare it to Black and Hispanic households. So to act like there isn't any way that this baby formula is actually being stolen for babies or whatever is very silly, and I assume the majority of it probably is.
Do you have any data that shows that the people that you're referring to, the single mothers in those situations, are the ones shoplifting the baby formula?
Yeah, I've got data proving that people who are conscious about money, people who are hungry, are more likely to end up stealing, and thus single mothers who are experiencing food insecurity would be a pretty prime demographic for that.
When you did that,
they're not the ones who are stealing trolleys full of baby formula, are they?
I don't really.
That's probably the people who are doing it to sell drugs, right? or to sell on the black
I don't
market.
think most people are stealing trolleys of baby formula.
Like the way that a lot of shoplifting stats are
that's
even compiled
what
is
people
looking
are,
at like
that's what people are
organized
talking about.
retail theft.
You're not going to be able to get
Wait, you're telling me
proper
people are
theft on any
talking
of
about a
these?
sensationalistic thing and they're like talking about how crazy it is? I mean, obviously, if there's like a video of someone stealing a whole trolley of meat, it's gonna go like popular on the internet. That's not what happens on a like day-to-day basis, though. Most of the time,
complaint that most of these retailers and staff members and people in communities are making is that people are able to shoplift right now with impunity because there aren't enough measures to stop them from doing it or to prosecute them afterwards. That seems to be the complaint that people are making. That's why these like
not on the customer or the shoplifter. That's on the responsibility of the store or the security or the government that you're under. So if like the shoplifters in New York were caught over 6,000 times, if they weren't jailed, I'm like, why would they stop shoplifting? That's not their problem, not their fault.
Do you agree
That's kind of what I'm saying.
Loner.
Yeah, I do agree that you should, but I also agree. I agree that you should, but I also don't think it's on the responsibility of a customer to say anything about it. So if you see something, oh fucking well. But then also, I don't agree with the whole stealing out of necessity thing. I don't think that's why people steal. I think people steal because they want to sometimes. I think that's a big part of it too. Once again, I still don't think that it matters.
Whose side are you
so
on?
I think okay.
Right,
So for
as long as we agree that they
let Ali finish. Let Ali finish,
Or
and
just
then
like
you can respond. Lauren,
anecdotally
Ali
speaking,
finish, and Lauren can respond. That's what we're going.
I'll speak on an anecdote that might apply to everyone. It not, the cost of things don't always go up due to theft. I live in a neighborhood. We have convenience stores. I go to the convenience store. No, I had $2 cash one day. Normally that would buy you 2 little bags of chips and 2 little Debbie's cakes, right? I bought my little 4 items. The clerk told me I can only get 1 of the little Debbie's cakes because they are $1 now. The price went up for no reason, right?
How do you know there's no reason?
Inflation. It went up due to inflation.
Okay, so it didn't go up due to theft, right?
But not
now
even...
the price went up due to inflation, but no one hold up. Wait, chill. Okay, understood. Understood. Now, people's wages didn't go up due to inflation, right? People don't make more money now, right? So what I'm saying, it's not that people steal out of necessity, but the theft isn't what's making the prices go up. So people feel justified when they go in and they take something that's overpriced.
It's an
very simple. I think that responsibility of catching the thief is up to the store, not up to the customers.
Wait,
Okay,
can
Lauren,
I
go ahead. In a moment, I'm going to let Lauren, then Straighterade, you're next, I promise.
Okay.
Sunday, I'm looking at you. We're going to let the woman speak, okay? Don't overtalk the woman. Lauren, go ahead, then Straighterade.
First of all, by responsibility, it's the responsibility. Like, it's not
Madam.
the responsibility as a witness.
Sorry, continue.
If you witness a murder, it's not your responsibility to call it in, but it would make you a morally better person. Same as the customers in this store. So it's not their responsibility. But once
Only
again,
because there's someone directly being affected. Only because there's someone being directly affected. There's no effect happening.
Okay. So now, my other issue, at least Allie and I can agree that these people should be locked up, especially if they're continuously doing.
Locked up? What is this cuck shit? Execute them!
Stop it, please. Okay, fine, fuck. I'm gonna mute everyone except for the person talking. Lauren, go ahead.
Better than at least Straighterade, who says that no one should be in jail as long as it's a non-violent crime, which I guess means she is pro everyone for J6, who was non-violent and who just trespassed, right? So I guess all of them should be free from jail, according to Straighterade. Thank you for the conservative.
The idiots who were walking through gawking because they were surprised to be in the building? Yeah, I agree. The people who broke in and, like, defecate on the desk? Maybe not.
What were the people chanting outside at Gen 6?
That's non-violent.
They were invading a building. That is the definition of violence. There's a violation.
Literally killed cops.
It's legally non-violent to trespass, but
Wait, so you don't
actually really?
say you want to like
Damn.
kill
Max,
people?
I want to hear Max's statement. That Straighterade.
Several
Max,
people. Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, several people, there were large crowds outside at January 6th chanting that they want to, like, kill people. I don't understand how you're going to compare, like, January 6th and then somebody stealing to feed their baby. If you're a mother and you have a child and that child has to skip a meal every couple days because you can't afford to get more, see, according to you, this would be enough to not want to steal. Would you then put your child in the position where they're going to end up developing worse, experiencing a worse life, be more unhappy, be more depressed, be more likely to kill themselves as a consequence of you being poor and then inflicting that on your child because you're too scared to steal and take matters into your own hands?
I think not to defend it.
No, let her answer. I want to hear it.
Lauren would sooner let her child die before she steals.
Let me respond. So, what you're saying doesn't make any sense because if it's a starving mother who really just cares about feeding their kids, we have this wonderful system called food stamps, right, in America. And if she
let's get into
food stamps catching strays.
Let's talk about food stamps.
We talk about the cost of the foods on the food stamps too.
Okay, what's happening is you got like 4 people yelling at her every time she speaks, and so no one can understand what she's saying.
Can I respond to the food stamps point really quickly?
Well, once she's done with her point, you may. Lauren,
are you done, Lauren?
So, you wanted to say that I was comparing starving mothers just feeding their babies who are skipping every other meal because blah, blah, blah. Okay, yes. I am comparing the ravage shoplifting epidemic in which there are about 1/3 of these shoplifting are from the same repetitive shoplifters over and over and over again. And these people have made it their jobs to do it. They are not starving. They are not needy, and then you want to lock away the January 6th
obese welfare queens
for walking around.
Okay,
not even
I'm not gonna.
Knowing that it was.
Okay, go on.
So,
no, go on.
And I was.
Those repeat offenders are only in New York City, as far as I know. But continue.
Not true.
No, it's
I was in San Francisco last night. Watch my story on Instagram.
No one cares what you personally saw or didn't see, Laura. That's an anecdote.
That's reliable.
No, wait. The stat isn't. The stat's not. That's just the stat from New York. It doesn't mean it's probably the only place it's happening. No, and actually, coming back to the baby formula. Coming back to the baby formula, you can look on Google. Like there are stories from this going back to 2005. Like baby formula has been a staple for like gangs for a really long time when it comes to drugs. So
there were stories.
I'm just saying. I think it's probably reasonable that the average civilian and the average human being can notice the difference between a mother stealing a ball of baby formula for a baby who's malnourished versus a fucking gang going in and lifting the entire store.
Lauren already said that she would turn in that mother.
Unless the mother is actually just running a drug industry.
Lauren has already said that she would turn that mother in, which leads me to believe that if Lauren's own child was starving, she would sooner let her child die than to steal from Walmart.
But to be fair,
let me talk about
hang on, Straighterade, hang on.
Let me talk about that one.
May I? Quick.
No, you may not.
Wait, please, pretty please.
Max and then Straighterade.
Your beard looks lovely today.
Explode if she doesn't get to go.
Lonabox, you said that there were a ton of.
Straighterade is a question.
Okay, Lonabox, you said that there are a ton of people. There are a ton of stories about how how baby formula was sold to make drugs, like there haven't ever been sensationalistic drug stories in the media. Like, do you know about Jenkum? The thing that there was like tons of stories about where people were like huffing shit to get high, and it happened in like poor countries. Not actually a thing. Not actually a widespread thing. Totally overblown. Totally like blown out of proportion by the media. You cannot be like citing news articles existing as a trustworthy source. Secondly, I want to know about
what should I
food
trust
stamps.
then? If a news article says that this is a problem that's been brought up in
actual
Congress
data,
and by...
like actual information that's like actually fucking like statistical. It
Yeah,
isn't
not
just
just
like basically
sensationalist
anecdotes, which is like story. What news stories are?
Didn't Wick's story say? Didn't Wick's point say that most of the baby formula stolen is by gangs? Most of the actual
Yeah, I think
quantity
Wick is
for a source
wrong.
and he didn't
I said
give me the
why Wick
source,
is
to be
wrong
fair.
as well.
No,
because
you said-
mothers
you
are like
didn't
the
say- you
highest
didn't
proportion
actually-
of people who
you
have
didn't-
food insecurity.
That you realize that doesn't actually refute what Wick says. If more mothers are stealing less quantities of baby formula and the gangs are stealing higher quantities, that means most of the formula is stolen by gangs.
I do. Okay. I gotta. Hang on. Wait, please, Max. Someone, anyone. I've got a question that's pertinent to this.
And you didn't refute it.
I have a question that's pertinent to this, and I'm curious. Wick, by what methodology would you determine the exact usage of this baby formula? How on earth have you determined the percentage of it that is used towards drugs?
We can make some inferences. If you have 20 different people all dressed in ski masks coming in and stealing this baby formula,
but hang on.
Wait,
That's not shoplifting. That's not petty theft. That's not what we're talking about.
That's not. We're talking about shoplifting. Wick, we're not talking about a baby formula heist. We're talking about shoplifting. We're talking about shoplifting, not an organized heist. We're not talking about Daniel Ocean coming in for the baby formula trove.
Okay. Wick, I wanted to ask Lonerbox a question.
Please, go ahead.
Okay, so we're already presupposing that shoplifting only occurs at the hands of, like, customers, but it can also occur at the hands of, like, employers or employees of the businesses themselves. So I ask you, if you were at, like, a CVS or a Walmart, and you saw an employee shoplift something, you saw them conceal an item, put something in their like pants, shorts, or whatever, try to steal it. Would you report that employee to their manager, knowing that it was probably going to lead to their termination? And probably, if they were convicted or whatever, like in Texas, it's a crime of moral turpitude. And if you're tried and convicted for something like that, or convicted of a crime like that, you can no longer work for retail ever again. So would you report that like stealing employee?
My position is generally like the way that they deal with like other kind of like gang crime epidemics is that they go for the big offenders. Like I think the FBI defines it as organized retail theft is if you steal like $5,000 or more worth of things, and that's what I would go for. Yeah, I don't really care that much personally about a shoplifter lifting like a bottle of juice. Like, yeah.
Okay, but like I mean an employee for sure. If you saw an employee doing it, you wouldn't say anything.
No, I wouldn't say anything. No.
If you saw like a regular patron or whatever, you wouldn't.
No, and I can just shorten it really quickly by saying that like most of the people who complain about this aren't really kicking up that much of a fuss about crimes like that. They're more bothered about the fact that people go in there and lift trolleys worth of stuff to sell, like either on the black market or to scalp people and shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that seems to be the thing that retailers are complaining about as well, about how easy it is to just walk in, lift like thousands of dollars worth of stuff, and then fuck off.
That's their fault, isn't it?
The reason that this panel came across in the first place is due to discourse over someone lifting thousands of dollars.
If I can,
meat.
yes.
Okay,
if I can, hang on. If I can, like, build a little bit of a bridge here potentially. One of my objections is someone I still don't know what side I am on in this, but I think I'm more on Straighterade and this one side. One of the issues with the meat lady is not just that she was shoplifting, it's that she was shoplifting in a manner that created a spectacle that generated contempt from within the working class. And so one of the issues that I have with it is that it created a situation where you had people who were obviously underpaid working for, was it Walgreens or what was this organization that she was stealing from? They were the ones who were videotaping or recording her and trying to prevent her from loading her car with the meat. Moreover, she also prevented other people, shoplifters included, from accessing that meat themselves. And so there is, nonetheless, regardless of the ethicality of shoplifting generally, there are more and less ethical ways to engage in it and more and less ethical ends for it. I think we all more or less agree on that. Am I correct?
Yep.
I do.
Yeah.
Lauren doesn't. Can you explain why not, Lauren? You were the odd one out here. Go ahead, Lauren. Give her some space. Oh, I swear to God, Sunday, if you talk in the next 5 seconds, I'm going to mute you. Go ahead.
Can you
do it, coward.
Can you repeat exactly what you said, Sunday, just so that I can.
I am flattered. I am flattered by your confidence in my powers of recollection, but unfortunately, I cannot. Yeah, sorry. You're up a creek, alas.
Well, I can paraphrase if you don't mind.
You might guess.
Right?
Yeah.
So what I saw you shaking your head at was the fact that Sunday said that there are more ethical ways to steal than there are less ethical ways to steal, and that we aren't. Is everyone in agreement that someone stealing just?
Well, if I may,
things-
very quickly,
Yeah.
I think it's a bit unfair for Loner Box over here to be lumped in with this one because I don't think Loner Box is as anti-poor as
I don't
this
care
one
if
is.
it's unfair. I'm doing the.
But
panel.
no,
I
but
don't
I'm saying
care
this for a
about
reason. But
your-
I'm saying this for a reason. I'm saying this. I wasn't quite entirely finished.
Well, I want to hear what Lauren has to say.
But I
Okay,
do
we get
think
the Loner Box
amongst
isn't
the
fully
sane
in
members of the panel,
Okay,
that
Lauren,
there
go
is
ahead.
there is a general acceptance of the idea.
Okay, yeah, we get it. Loner Box doesn't fully agree with me, President Sunday. Also, you're muted. I kind of come from the Kantian ethics standpoint, where if
Oh,
something
God.
is immoral, it is immoral, and so stealing is immoral. It's immoral at any level, whether it's small or large.
That's
I
not what that
heard. Who
means.
did I hear bring up something
not
along
what that
those
means.
lines? I think it was.
Yes, who brought up the categorical imperative? Anyone?
It was
I've actually
Loner-
opened with
Loner
real
Box brought
consequentialism,
up-
so yeah, it's similar.
Consequential
Loner
is
Box brought that
Kantian.
up earlier. Repeat what you said, Straighterade.
You said somebody brought this up earlier, and I said, yes, who brought up the Kantian categorical imperative? And Lonerbox, I think what the framework you're talking about isn't Kantian at all.
Well,
No, it is.
I think.
It
Okay.
is,
Hang on. Loner
Oh my
Box.
God! I just
But
unmuted
But
you
please,
for 2
please,
seconds.
Sunday, I
Okay.
think actually
You
knows
would-
You
about
deafened
this.
me
Go
first.
ahead,
Very
Lauren.
good
I want to hear what Lauren thinks. Right, and then once she gets it out, we can have these things. And I see your Discord message, Doobie. Don't worry, we'll get to it. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with Kant for the most part, and essentially you, Loner Box, for the most part. If something is unethical at most levels, then you just shouldn't do it at any level, because if it's generally accepted by society, then it would be a negative impact on society. So, for instance, if everybody took the idea that it is not morally corrupt to shoplift and that it was okay to shoplift, then everybody would shoplift and there would not be like a functioning retail society.
I just wanna add a
Nobody
stat
is
as well, just
arguing.
for-
Nobody is arguing
Okay.
that shoplifting as a prescription is a moral maxim we should adhere to. What people are arguing is that increasing harm and poverty and misery in the world is avoiding that is a moral maxim that we should subscribe to. And so given the circumstance that we do not know the circumstances under which people are shoplifting, it would behoove us to be cautious when we start appealing to the state to start putting its boot down on people who are engaging in that. That's the argument.
Can I ask something?
I want to.
No.
Could I extend that point?
Oh, go ahead.
Can I? Thank you.
I want to ask something after though.
I mean, the reason that things like shoplifting are viewed as unethical is because you shouldn't take what you don't need, right? If we're like applying that to a lot of people, there are plenty of people who shoplift who don't need to be doing so, and I do agree that we should probably try and stop those people. But still, there are plenty of people who that doesn't apply to and who do need to have the stuff. And also, if there are companies like supermarkets keeping a bunch of shit that they don't necessarily need and they're going to end up throwing it out, how is that ultimately more ethical than somebody else taking that and then feeding it to their child, right?
I mean, Lauren
I
would
just
rather
wanna-
have a society where people panhandle before they steal stuff that gets thrown out.
Loner,
you know,
go
so-
ahead.
I just wanted to throw in a
I'd
stat.
rather have
yeah,
a
don't worry,
society
don't worry.
where people ask their neighbors for help before they steal from their neighbors, Aaron. What a
Yeah,
wild
homeless
concept.
people
stealing
panhandling on
from
the
your
streets en
neighbors.
masse. I'm not talking about that.
Loner,
On
please.
that.
I just wanted to throw in a stat because it was challenged earlier that within about a year, it's anything between 15 billion and 30 billion dollars worth of goods are lost just from organized retail theft. So, and one of the top items is formula. So it's not like a sensationalist yeah, it's one of the problems. I don't know why you would assume it was just immediately a sensationalist, because I mentioned that I saw lots of.
Well, maybe
articles
because the
about it.
price went up and they can sell it on the black market. I mean, I don't think that like to act like that's the only.
This is from
that it's only
2011.
gonna be used for drugs.
This is from 2011. That's why I said the stories from like this go back to 2005. Yeah, it's like
Okay.
it's a thing that gangs like to do. Yeah,
It doesn't matter. Okay,
and-
the question is really simple. Obviously, people steal. People shouldn't steal. I don't think anyone is saying that people should steal. Right? We're saying, where does the responsibility lie? Does it lie with the customer to do anything? Does it lie with the workers to do anything? Does it lie with the business owner to
I'm
do
saying
anything?
some people
The
should
only
steal. If you need to steal,
I mean, yeah,
if you
because
need to
everyone
steal
keeps
to
bringing up
provide
a
for your
necessity-
family, you should
stealing
steal
out of
it.
necessity.
If you need to steal to provide for your family or to have a basic standard of living, you should steal. I don't think anybody's saying you shouldn't steal under any
I
circumstances.
mean, sure.
Even loaner
I-
box isn't saying you
Never
shouldn't steal
been
under any
a need.
circumstances.
That's never a need.
This whole thing
And-
came
yeah.
up. This whole thing came up due to the fact that people were mad at the person sharing the Twitter post saying, if you see someone stealing food, no, you shouldn't. Then everyone called that virtue signaling. I'm calling the virtue signal called the virtue signal call. You don't, like, it does not matter when someone's stealing from a company. It's not affecting the person. The only reason that we would do
But it
anything,
is.
how is it affecting it?
I'm sorry, which person are we talking? Are we talking
It
the company
Causes
owner
an
or?
increase in prices.
The,
Yeah, it causes
price,
an
the increase in prices is not due to theft. There's not enough theft happening to
It's
these
not,
companies
it's-
for them to be the
Well,
Well,
increase.
Absolutely it is.
hang on.
Yes, it is.
Loss.
Absolutely is.
Hang on. At whatever negligible amount, this is indisputable. Any kind of loss will contribute to increased prices. The question is whether it's determinative. That's ambiguous, but that's not really up for debate. Like, obviously, if you lose product
Also,
without getting
Carl
profit
Max,
from it,
I've been
that'll
paid.
that'll
I've
affect
been
prices.
paid to call you stupid and to personally
Nice.
insult you.
I would
that
have
from?
done it for free. I wouldn't have
tell
meant it
me.
because
It's
they're
from Doobie,
brilliant. But
specifically. Doobie also
Doobie?
sent me a
Doobie?
yes, Doobie. Doobie
Why?
also sent me a
Wait, how much do I have to pay you to
research
steal something from Walmart?
Is
more
this the
than you
Doobie
have.
I would know? I know there's a
I don't know
Doobie
if
on
you
a
know
big
it's a Doobie,
Discord
though. I don't
debate
care.
server.
They paid me to do it. I did it. And also, he wants me to ask you whether or not why you trust data and not journalists when it has been shown, and he linked me a source.
I trust journalists that
people-
report on data.
People
properly.
stole falsified data all the time, or not all the time.
But
at least
journalists
it is-
don't?
Yeah.
what?
Wait, yeah, you're saying journalists are like more reliable?
I'm not
Look,
saying anything.
this is
I
like
was paid money to tell you this. I did. My job is
that's.
done.
You're a
I
lackey,
respect
Wick.
that. I respect that deeply. I don't really see the point in believing in journalists over empirical data. I believe journalists when they provide empirical data. You need to combine the two. You can't just be saying journalists are correct or data is wrong because it can be falsified sometimes.
Dude, but you recommended
that's
Mistborn
pretty
to me.
retarded.
You recommended Mistborn to me. How could you? How could you take this stance?
It's a
Unbelievable.
good book. Anyway,
It's a very
I think it's more
regardless,
just because I mentioned like talking points that I heard from like journalists who were talking about an epidemic, and you just immediately dismissed it as sensationalist. That might be why he's upset, but I don't know. Just guessing.
Well, because journalists aren't
Might be.
necessarily
Okay,
relying on
I wanna-
data.
Yeah,
I
Journalists
because
will also
journalists do a lot of
Direct this conversation a little
sensationalism.
I want to direct this conversation a little bit. For those of you on the more, not to say pro stealing side, but the
Permissive.
more permissive side of these things, would it be morally permissible to steal directly from Walmart, the owners of Walmart's house? Like
No.
if you
No.
were able to go into the owner specifically's
No.
house and steal from
No.
them,
No.
would it be
No.
morally permissible?
No.
Why
No.
not?
I mean, it
Direct effect
depends.
to the person.
Do they notice? If they don't notice, I think it'll be fine because it would affect.
I don't,
like,
I don't think. I don't think the
affect
issue is
reality,
noticing. I
but-
don't think. I don't think ownership is limited at the point of noticing that your possessions have been stolen. I think the reason though would be because it's not hitting them at the point where there is some intrinsic connection between the thing that you are stealing and the fact of it being a functional part of the extortion of the community. The influence of places like Walmart, for example, on local communities and local retail is known. Or on the exploitation that gives them their product. At that point, you are literally just violating a general norm against breaking and entering into people's personal abodes, and I think that's a dangerous precedent to set.
It's also the fact
That's
that for
very
breaking into someone's house as well as for shoplifting, both of these crimes correlate with an increase in physical attacks as well. So as shoplifting went up in the UK, so too did physical assaults and antisocial behavior and verbal
Now, would they
abuse. So-
deserve it is a different question. Yes, they would, absolutely.
but that's what I'm asking is like because it seems to be when I was hearing if you see a shoplifter you didn't, and that kind of Twitter response was some people saying that, well, we have to probably just assume that they're doing it out of necessity, and if they're not, it's okay anyway because fuck corporations.
Well, because the
that's
principle.
why I maybe want to ask.
Yeah.
Let her finish.
I am.
With what you've been saying, like Karl Marx, like if you're saying like even like a gang stealing baby formula to make drugs, like, well, if we hate Walmart, like, is it better that Walmart just Walmart loses it anyway, or what? Like, what would you say to that?
I mean, I think people should have the things they need to have. If Walmart is keeping that, is preventing that from being able to get to people by way of permitting people to steal a shit ton of it, or by way of making it unaffordable to people, then I think it's fine for people to take it.
So that's why I asked you about gangs who are doing it to make drugs or to just sell on the black market.
Well, if gangs are doing it to sell it on the black market and they're getting it to mothers for a more affordable price, then that's fine. I don't really know how much these are actually being used to make drugs, though, because what I've looked at about it, you can cut drugs with a lot of things, and baby formula is one of the more expensive ones, and you probably wouldn't necessarily
that they're stealing
go for
it.
Can I respond? Can I respond very quickly? Can I respond very quickly? In the event that you have people in masks coming in and you see them in an organized fashion acquiring these things, as far as I'm concerned, it's ethically neutral whether or not you report them, because you're dealing with people who are essentially engaging in precisely the same kind of activity as Walmart is, albeit against Walmart. I have more condemnation for Walmart on that front, but you're not dealing with people who are definable by individual need. If you're talking about like a mother, for example, who slips a piece of a package of formula into her purse or something like that, I would say in that case you look away. Like that seems like pretty clear cut to me. I don't know. I don't think like one of the things
really quick, Sunday, to interrupt you. I think the underlying assumption here is that does everybody think that Walmart has the monopoly on these goods by force or through legitimate means?
Well, everything is a monopoly on anything by force, but I think the point that I'm getting to, and one of the real sticking points here that's not really being stated explicitly, is that, and this is the reason why Lonerbox had the pseudo-Kantian point earlier, is that if you allow something indefinitely, you end up in a situation where even if global communism is achieved, you still have a situation where people are judging whether or not they respect the right of a person to their personal belongings based upon whether or not they can draw a line between their owning that thing now and some active exploitation in the past. I think that's a mistake.
It is the top of the hour, and I want to get through these super chats, if I may. So just give me one moment. $5 from Draven 1895 to say, what if the purse the shoplifting mom has is Gucci? $5 from Mirutsi to say, why is Lauren pretending to play on her phone? Cringe and transparent. $5 from Running Joke to say, is it okay to shoplift medicine if someone really needs it to survive? $5 from Portland is Burning. If shoplifting is morally permissible, can you burglarize wealthy homes if you know they're unoccupied at the time? Why or why not? $5 from Draven 1995. I doubt the people stealing snacks, Pokemon cards, and headphones from my job are doing it out of necessity. $5 from In Pursuit of Knowledge. Max, can you give us your address? I am poor and I need to steal from you. I promise you won't notice. $5 for Fondue. If I'm a member of a community, is it not moral to look out for people providing services for it? In other words, are we not our brother's keeper? And finally, $5 from iPratBrat to say, I'm all for shoplifting from big corporations. They already commit wage theft and are never held responsible. Plus, they have loss insurance. Okay, thank you for indulging me in that. And if you got super chats, throw them in, and at the top of the hour, I'll read them out. So thank you again. But yeah, that's a good question from Fondue, and I want to kind of focus in on that. Is it not looking out for your community to report people who are stealing from stores and knowing that that theft at least has a possibility of leading to those stores and those services no longer being provided in your community? Lauren, I want you to go first, and then we'll go around. So, Lauren, what do you think?
Yeah, you absolutely have if you want the best for your community and for the store owners in your community, then you should report people who you see committing any crimes, including theft, or murder, for that matter.
Hey, Allie.
Whatever.
Aline, what do you think?
Yeah, I just don't think the responsibility is with the customers. If there's enough theft happening in your community, there's a problem. The responsibility is up to the store. Store can hire security.
Is this
and the
only for
security should
theft
be able to
if
handle
you see
that.
someone getting insulted?
Oh, you're making
Hmm?
muffins.
Right? If you see someone getting assaulted, do you think that there's no responsibility to report that?
There's a
Making
direct
muffins.
effect on that individual, so no, I think you should report
Oh,
that.
it's the directness of the fact. So
Yeah,
indirect facts don't
there's an
matter?
actual direct victim right in front of you.
Max.
There's an actual thing, yeah.
Got you, Max.
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Sure. Is it not does it not behoove you as a member of community to report theft against people who are providing, or companies who are providing services to your community? Why or why not?
Well, it depends on how those services are provided, right? If those services, as we're under capitalism, most services are going to be behind a paywall, right? So if they're providing stuff, but only to like a certain group of people who are making a certain amount of money who can afford it, then I think it's okay to steal from them, especially if you're a member of the group who they're not like, helping out.
Sure,
if
if they're selling it, then it's okay to steal.
If they're selling it, I mean, it really depends, especially because a lot of my gripes with the way that things have gone with grocery stores is how they've like hiked up the prices and allowed that to happen. So I think if they do just continue to keep high prices despite inflation going down and all that kind of thing, then I think you're okay to steal it. But generally you should only do it when it's necessary. And you should try and do it to shops that can both afford it and also kind of deserve it.
Loner, what do you think?
I don't know why you should only have to do it if it's necessary, if you think it's like, if it's all being held by capital or private property, which is inherently theft anyway. I feel like that would just mean everything is fair game if it's being sold by a
because that would
business.
be, I mean, that wouldn't work, obviously, right? If everyone stole, that wouldn't work. You said this yourself.
Well, that's the
why
point,
I'm saying
yeah,
that
because-
there needs to be conditions for it.
Well, but you said one of those conditions is if they're putting the prices up. But one of the reasons they keep putting prices up, even if inflation's dropping, is because grocery retailers only make a profit average of 1%. Maybe Walmart makes 2% profit. So if they lose more than they expect to leak through shoplifting, they're going to put up prices to make up that loss, or they're going to get security. And at the cost of security, they make up that up as well by raising prices.
Well, that's the same thing.
So that's the problem. It's like, even if you assume that this is like, or with the baby formula, even if you assume that this is like a good, honest gang just trying to get the goods to the mothers for a lower cost, then someone else is paying for that. Some other customers are paying for that. And generally, they're also seeing goods chained up and extra security or shops closing. Or so, yeah.
I want to note that I don't just support gangs going into a place. I think keeping, I know I slipped up there before, but keeping the community feeling safe and happy is a primary concern of mine.
Do you
so I
think
wouldn't necessarily
that knowing
encourage
that there's a high amount of
The
stealing
difference-
or shoplifting
the difference
makes the people in the
between-
community feel safe and happy?
The difference between a gang stealing product from a Walmart and
I think
Walmart
Sunday likes to interrupt when I'm
I
having
do.
questions with other people.
I know.
I do.
can
I
tell.
know, right?
and Walmart
It's okay.
I'm an
He's
anarchist.
stealing
That's how I do.
time from all of us.
I
We
am.
can stop him, actually.
I'm a thief of
My
time.
security has stopped him.
I am
Calm
like a
down.
god.
I want you to answer
What was your
your
question again? I'm sorry.
So
it's late
basically,
here.
does shoplifting in a community or an area,
I gotta pee
does
one
that
sec.
not make the community feel less safe? Right? It
I
feels.
mean, it depends on who you are. If you're a privileged member of the community who feels like they're, they're entitled to having all the products that they can, buy or whatever, then obviously you're going to see shoplifting and be like, oh, those people didn't do what I did. They don't deserve that, right? I mean, that's usually like the mindset of people protecting capital.
Okay, so if you're scared by people shoplifting, by people committing acts of burglary, then you're privileged and you're spoiled.
Do you think you're
and
privileged? Do you
I don't
you're
think
spoiled?
most people care or notice when things are being stolen or shoplifted. But
Let's
yeah.
let Lauren
let her
answer
answer the
since she
question.
was asked a question. Go ahead, Lauren.
Well, I was asking you a question, but whether or not I'm privileged has very little to do with this, and I'm privileged not
It has everything to do with it. Because, Lauren, I know that you are somebody who's incredibly privileged, because the way that you talk about shoplifting,
Yeah.
the way you talk about not ever doing any crime to help out your loved ones, it shows to me that you've always had everything available to you within the system, right? It shows to me that you've never had to go like for an extra systemic solution. Like you've never had to go out of that in order to survive. So you're very clearly a very privileged person, and a lot of people aren't.
Yeah,
I mean,
you know my life so well, apparently.
So you don't
I
think
mean,
you're
look at
privileged,
you,
Lauren?
listen to you. It's very
Lauren,
clear,
but you don't
Lauren.
think
I mean,
you're
if you weren't privileged, then
That's
tell
not
me.
the question.
Lauren, you're saying you're not
No.
privileged?
That's not what I'm saying. I am privileged, but to say
Right.
that I have never in my life
Okay, that's what
any-
Carl was saying. He was saying you're privileged.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you haven't experienced like the hardships of being systemically oppressed in a way that you can't easily escape, like
first of all, I don't
especially by
think
financial or
systemic
capitalistic
oppression.
means.
I will say,
as for being I have experienced being like poor myself, not to the point where I was worried about starvation. I'll be honest with that.
Okay.
But that's
how poor are we talking? I mean, I don't want to be too rude.
I've had
actually.
like
That's not what I'm
I've
saying.
had zero and I've had like negative bank account, if that's what you're asking. Like I've been down zero, but like I've had to go ask family for help before, if that's what you're asking.
Okay. And can you understand
Yeah,
if why
I've
somebody
been
who
there.
doesn't necessarily have family and things that they
Family
can like
to
reach back
help?
on might if somebody didn't have that, can you understand why they might then feel it's okay to take money from like a company that gets like
No.
hundreds of billions of dollars a year?
No,
You don't
because
you wouldn't
there's
understand
still,
that.
no.
You said that
No,
okay,
because
so
it's-
there's you say you have a lot of moral absolutes. You also say that like killing somebody is always bad. What if somebody's like got your whole family at
Defense,
gunpoint?
self-defense.
They're holding they've got a
self-defense.
yeah, sure.
So you're acting in self-defense? That's
Yeah.
fine.
Self-defense is
Yeah.
fine. Okay. So how are people who are shoplifting not defending themselves from the system, which is telling them they can't have
Not
enough food and stuff?
defending themselves from the system. That's such a warped way of looking at it.
Well, 10%
The
of Americans are people who are food insecure. They are defending themselves from a
they're
system
not-
which
wait,
isn't
you
allowing
keep on
them
going to
to.
food.
That's
Food
just
insecurity
like-
doesn't mean you need to shoplift, though. Food insecurity is just, it's more to do with nutrition. Right?
Yeah,
Like, you
but
don't
I
have to
think
shoplift
if you're food insecure, you have a lot more justification in shoplifting than someone who isn't. I think you can agree with that, right? If somebody
Oh,
can't, if
I
somebody
mean,
has to skip meals,
that's the biggest
It's
Martin Bailey I've
never
ever heard in my fucking life. But yeah, of course, yeah.
what? It's a pretty fucking straight to the point.
If we're
point, is it
talking,
not?
if we're talking about privilege again, like poor communities are generally where most of the people have to deal with shops being everything being behind glass and padlocks and everything because of the amount of shoplifting that happens in their communities. Again, quite often by gangs, and that's like the big reason that like the bulk of these measures are taken. So like I don't know why you're calling it the privileged position, because I mean maybe I'm being anecdotal, right? Because I came from a very poor community as well. Poor people fucking hate crime. Generally speaking, the most fucking fascistic, tough on crime opinions you'll ever get in society are from poor people, because they live in
Yeah,
those
because they're
communities.
people
that are
who
really
have
crime.
like
Yeah.
they've put in the effort, they've struggled more than anybody else has to get out of that position, and then they look down upon the other people who can't, like who aren't capable of doing that.
Yeah, and they suffer the consequences from shoplifting, especially if a shop
go on.
Really
closes.
quick.
Are retail workers privileged?
What?
No.
Wait, Sunday, are retail workers privileged?
I don't know what.
Okay, do they perhaps maybe represent the poor?
I'm not. Yeah. I mean, no. What I more meant was that it's not people who
No,
have
you're fine.
escaped
Muted on my end,
poverty.
sorry.
It's people who are in
you're not muted on
poverty,
mine.
but they're working really hard to try and get through it still, and they're angry because the
Yeah,
other people
but
aren't.
no,
working.
no,
The
no,
workers-
but
the only reason the
crucially,
workers
The other
would
thing
go
is
out of
that
the way
when
to
we're
report
talking-
because they don't want to be
Please.
scrutinized further by the company and being
Aaron.
surveyed more.
no, but
Aaron.
no, that's not true. That's not true. They enthusiastically, I know because I used to do this. They enthusiastically pursue shoplifters.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
they,
workers.
no, but not because they're worried about moving up in the company. They view shoplifters with contempt, unjustly, by the way. But that's beside the point.
Oh, I mean, I've just heard of people getting like over like
Okay, I want to hear from Aaron. Aaron, go ahead.
Retail workers do not have limitless upward mobility. I'm sorry, my
Okay,
Look,
friend.
this is your friend, Aaron. You know you're friends with Sunday, so talk to him.
I'm only
Aaron,
the first
go
lady.
ahead.
I'm not the president. Okay. One.
Yeah.
And two, the other thing is that like when we're talking about like consequences and fallout of retail theft and shoplifting, and we're talking about those security things that they have to put with like razors and deodorant where you have to ding somebody and call an attendant or whatever. It's like that's a consequence in the most neutral sense of the word, meaning that that's like cause and effect. That's what happens after there's a lot of retail theft related to certain items in a store. But I do think it's like preferable to the alternative, which is that the store shuts down. I feel like how is this not a win-win for everybody? It's an automated security measure that most stores can implement fairly easily. Customers can reliably get the products that they need simply by, yes, an inconvenience that makes me want to fucking kill myself, which is having to talk to one of these fucking, wage cucks and get my deodorant. Okay, but it deters crime. You don't actually have to, like, to me, that is always annoyance, but it's a win-win, because then we don't have to actually send more people to jail because of a petty crime like that. It becomes too difficult.
I think the underlying problem that is across the board is that people are forced into a situation of poverty and scarcity generally artificially by a level of theft and a level of enslavement and exploitation that we are seemingly universally fine with. For whatever reason, the debate is at the level of shoplifting, even though people are only shoplifting outside of, for example, people who are doing so as an organized method to profit, which I agree is like at the bare minimum morally neutral. We are only at this level of resolution because we are concerned at a level of law and order when the things that they are stealing from, when we're talking about big supermarkets, Walmart, etc., we are talking about organizations that rely on expropriation abroad and functionally acting as a cartel with other businesses locally. There's a reason why companies are able to pay the minimum wage, and that's because there's no competition, because they all more or less will pay the same amount for the same job. That's what creates that poverty in the first place. Because people don't have a choice.
I just want to say that given the fact
there
that
should be no minimum wage,
that what correlates with shoplifting is also violence against retail staff, and retail staff are usually quite poor and working class. Like that's why I feel like, but whenever I hear this reasoning, which is that, well, in the case of capital, which is like inherently theft, or that Walmart holds the goods and therefore that they're holding it from people who deserve it for less than they're paying, then the problem with that then is like, it sounds like, not what you're saying, really, but what I'm saying is like, I just feel like it's kind of difficult to get the concession that I think just generally shoplifting should be a social taboo. If we're making exceptions for
violence
necessity,
happening to the staff?
I think it should be
because
both.
Shoplifting usually correlates with increased violence.
I
If
think
there's more shoplifting, there's usually more
What
violence.
kind of violence? What's happening?
Well, for example, I used to work. For example,
Oh my God,
I can give an example,
let other people
but I can
talk.
give an example. I can give an
But I
example.
want to hear from Ali.
But he asked him for an.
You got it right, man.
Okay.
Ali, go ahead.
But yeah, no. So like when you say violence is happening to the staff, what do you mean? You can't just say like a statement like that. What's happening?
Well, when I worked at Walmart, for example,
What do you mean? What's happening? Like they get it, like either get verbally attacked or they get like punched or they
physically,
get like, weapons taken from them. Yeah,
physical.
physical.
Even at the level
I don't know why you're challenging me on this.
Even at the level of an
because then this stops being shoplifting when you're harassing or attacking somebody.
Ellie, please, I'm on your side, but this is a losing argument. Even at the level,
Let him make it. God damn.
But he did already. Even at I'm sorry, you can't keep up. Even at the level of like an interaction not actually taking place where like people come to blows. When I used to work retail, what would typically happen is guys would come through, they would pick up their stuff, and one of the first things they would grab would be a baseball bat from the sports aisle. You're not going to accost somebody with a baseball bat on their way out the door.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that happens. So that's a losing argument. The issue is not that shoplifting isn't violent. Obviously it is. The question is...
wait, that's not a losing argument. My argument is that the retail worker should not interfere. If you see someone
But you're talking about... nobody here is arguing that the retail workers have an obligation to report or to accost people. I don't know whose side you're on here. Yeah, but Lauren's nuts.
Lauren is actually
Lauren is on that side. I'm against that side, and Loner's saying that Lonerbox was saying that violence is incurred due to harassment from shoplifters. I'm saying that if someone is coming in and just taking something, that is shoplifting. If someone is harassing the worker, that stops being shoplifting. That becomes assault. That's a whole different crime.
If I'm going anecdotal, sometimes like
not anecdotal, just by definition.
I'm just telling you. No, I'm being anecdotal. I'm just saying that like experiences that I've heard and people that even people that I've known who've worked in retail, like.
Hold on, just one thing. It's not considered assault. You have shopkeeper's privilege, which allows you to temporarily hold someone for a reasonable amount of time in a reasonable manner to ensure that they didn't take any items if you have reasonable belief that they did.
I don't think that should be a responsibility of the worker. Yeah, there should be a hired security that does that.
Bro,
So
I'm losing my mind listening to you talk about who you think it should be the response. What you think about this is so irrelevant to the
It
conversation.
really isn't.
Yeah,
Because you're putting the responsibility on the workers
Let
to
Lauren
be
finish her
sure.
point. Please, go ahead.
Who is responsible for turning somebody in? So first of all, the customers have that option.
Nobody. Everybody
employees-
everybody
They have that
involved.
option. They're not the responsibility.
Everybody involved
It's impossible
owns the.
to hear Lauren, and I want to hear what Lauren has to say.
Everybody else has to.
Get
You
your
have to interrupt to
time.
get a word in.
What do you mean?
You don't.
I mean, I've been more of a moderator than you have. You put
Sunday-
your thumb on the
Sunday,
scale, Wick.
Sunday, what you've been doing is you've been interrupting literally everyone, so no one knows what anyone else's point is because you have to interject every single goddamn time, and it's interrupting the flow of the
But
conversation.
so have
I want you here,
you.
and I want to
Your
hear
job
what you
is
have
as
to say,
a
but I
moderator,
also want to hear
But you're
what other
interrupting
have
people,
to say.
and you're
What I need
giving
you to
arguments
do
in
right
favor
now,
of one side
because
over
you
the
will either do it
other.
voluntarily or you will do it involuntarily, is you will need to shut the fuck up and let other people speak, but you can interject later. Lauren, finish.
Okay, so you do have shopkeeper's privilege, and that does vary by state. That is true. California doesn't even have that anymore. That being said, it's no longer a privilege. Okay, go ahead. Go. What did you want to say, Ali?
So what I'm saying is like it shouldn't be a thing. The shop, a
Right,
worker.
let me get back. Yeah,
Go
okay,
ahead.
let me cover that.
Go ahead.
So who it should or shouldn't be
Mm-hmm.
required to turn it in is not relevant to the conversation. Now,
is.
the customers who are not shoplifting, they have the moral, like, in my
Not even
opinion,
moral.
the moral. Okay, they're not legally required to turn anyone in. Sure, fine. They're not legally required to. And that's just the case. And you personally think that they're morally they shouldn't even turn anyone in. That's a different argument. Now, when it comes to the employee, that's based off their contract. If the contract in their employment agreement says that they are required as like the shopkeeper to also participate in security, then it would be their requirement. Because contractual. So yeah,
Agreed.
it would be their responsibility. So
Agreed.
Yeah, it would be their responsibility. Okay. Okay. So you do because you said it wasn't.
Now,
their
oftentimes that is not put into the contract because when you're hiring someone to be a manager, you're not hiring them as trained security. They are not supposed to put their lives in danger to protect your profits. That would make absolutely no sense. So, I was talking when Lonerbox was talking, and he was saying that there's violence being incurred. I'm saying that it becomes a different crime. Now, if the worker approaches the shoplifter, which I think you should not do, that responsibility should not be on that person because they should not put their life in danger. That's all I'm saying. That it's their fault.
Stop. When you're saying it should not be their responsibility, what if it was contractually in their employment agreement that you are not to let people steal, you are to do your best.
That's the company's
to prevent
policy
shoplifting.
fault. That's the fault of the company policy. That should not
it
be in
is
the
their
policy.
responsibility.
That should not be in the
Okay, so
policy.
then
You're not paying someone as a security. You're paying them to manage your store.
What if they're paying them extra? What if you're
Then that's okay. If then that's fine. If that person took it upon their responsibility, but most people don't even read their contracts that
Then it
thoroughly
is
when
their
they're getting a job at Walmart.
Okay, so in that situation, employee's responsibility is to stop the shoplifting, okay? Then is
No,
it
it's
okay
not.
for the employee
No, it's
to
not.
stop the
Hang on. Wait. No. If you pursue a shoplifter,
because
you will
most
be
people don't even read their
reprimanded.
contracts. I'm sorry, to get
Wait.
a job at Walmart, no, you're not expected. You're not getting paid to do it, and you're not expected to work security. I'm
Have
sorry.
you?
saying in a situation where you
Oh my
are
God.
paid to handle the register and also prevent shoplifting, and maybe you're paid a bit extra because you have extra job responsibilities.
What?
Then do
That's
you
not
think
how that works.
employee
In your hypothetical, sure. In your hypothetical, sure.
absolutely is how that works, President Sunday. Welcome to like retail.
people
No,
get
it's
paid more when
not.
they do
In your
more work.
hypothetical,
Shop
sure.
keepers are usually not tasked with what loss prevention and security is
They're
tasked
not.
with. Stores typically
Wild.
have
So what?
kind of
You've
those-
only worked at like Nordstrom's and like large. You've never worked at like a like
a mom
in
and
a
pop.
small
Yeah.
store.
No, I have.
Yeah,
I
and
have, and that wasn't under our like job responsibilities.
So when you work retail in a mom and pop store, they don't tell you that you need to prevent like prevent theft as well.
Have
Have you ever worked a retail job in your
It is
life,
not the
lady?
responsibility of the worker to prevent
They don't
that
say that in
theft.
the UK for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
It is not the responsibility
I
of the
mean,
worker to
especially not in
prevent that
America where
theft.
people have
Especially
guns, probably, right?
if you get
You're talking
injured as like
contractually,
as
now
a
I'm talking morally.
If you get injured, usually the liability that the shop is going to assume if you got injured trying to prevent somebody from shoplifting, that ends up being more costly than if you had just allowed them to steal the item. That's why they don't instruct them to do it.
That's why in California, okay, so what you're talking about is very different, and that shows that you're not working at mom and pop stores. That shows that you're working in like large retailers. 'Cause
No,
in
I worked
large
at a pharmacy.
Retailers,
It's mom and pop pharmacy.
yeah, so a lot. Okay, so
You're not
in
obligated
business,
in
so
mom
not
and
even
pop shops to
retail.
stop thieves.
Not even retail. Okay,
Not
so in
even
the
retail.
so when I worked retail Laguna, you have small stores. They're usually owned by one person. What they do is they usually find like a couple of merchants from another country. Then they purchase in bulk from them, and then they sell at a higher price. It is literally only one person, and it's tight margins. And they pay you more than minimum wage, but they also anticipate you to try your best to prevent theft. Yeah, and you're supposed to
Maybe in
engage
Laguna
the job-
Beach.
Can I just answer your question from earlier,
Yeah, that's
Ali?
not, that doesn't happen in like smaller cities.
I want to hear from Loner, and I want to hear from Ollie, because Ollie had a question to Loner.
So
and
it
Loner
was
never
my
got a
responsibility. Hold on.
I-
So it was my responsibility
Yes.
if I saw somebody steal it. So you agree it was my
You
responsibility.
assumed that
as the
responsibility when you
employee.
accepted that contract and the pay.
Okay.
Right. Yes.
Cool.
So
On
it is
average,
my
people don't have
responsibility.
that responsibility or
I
that
think we solved
pay
this.
extra.
I think we solved this. Let's move
What
on.
the fuck is your point in bringing this up? So if it's contractually required,
The
then they
average
are
worker doesn't have
what
the
is your-
responsibility to
gang,
stop shoplifting. That is my argument.
Lauren, Ollie, both of you, please. I want to get some other people in here as well. You can't. Again, we want
doesn't
to
make
keep the conversation full. I understand, but we can move on, and we'll redress it later. I promise you. Loner, you wanted to answer the question. Go ahead, and I know Max has been trying to get in too. So Loner, then Max.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so people who work in retail are not safe from violence just because they turn a blind eye. If you have a shoplifter, a lot of what they want, like alcohol, batteries, razors, are behind the counter, and that often involves the shoplift having to either threaten or attack the retailer to get their good. That's why That's why there's a. It's so they can shoplift. That's why.
Armed robbery?
That's why.
Not
That's why I was-
shoplifting. That is
Let Loner
robbery.
finish. Let Loner
That's-
finish. Loner, go ahead.
Why I was saying earlier, that's why there's usually a correlation between shoplifting increasing and violence against staff increasing. So that's why I have a problem with earlier on when you saw this thing with Twitter and the whole if you didn't see anything. The problem there is that it seems like from a lot of people, particularly people on the far left anti-capitalist wing, is that the position is kind of just like shoplifting is either basically acceptable or just like based because fuck capitalism. Whereas I think a much more reasonable position to be like a general rule should be that shoplifting should be a social taboo. Does anyone disagree with that? And we can maybe explore that, or
No, but can I
No, I
respond?
don't disagree, but I don't think you should be conflating shoplifting and like petty thievery with armed robbery.
what about you,
So-
Karl Max? Do you think shoplifting should be a social taboo?
Again, I think it should depend. Like, I mean, look, if we were to like put in policies in which we knew that people were always getting enough food and that kind of thing, people always had enough resources, I would agree. Yes, it should be a taboo because then people don't actually need that. But while we do have things like the failing American food stamp system, which is, you know, it's hard to get to. Like you have to be working a shit ton of hours, even if you've got kids. You've got to you only get like a pretty small amount of money, especially in certain states. Like while these things are possible, while people are still, you know, going hungry, I think it's okay for shoplifting to exist. But I mean, if you folks are pro instating policies like a fucking UBI or something, so people can make sure that people will always be able to afford food, then yeah, we can say that shoplifting is like a bad thing. But you need to take those steps to make sure that people don't end up actually doing it out of necessity first, you know? Then you can say it's bad.
I think apart from Lauren, I think most people would agree that like if you're in Aladdin's situation and you need to eat to live, then yeah, and you need to steal to eat, then that's probably fine. But generally, yeah, but like that's not really, that's an exception to like a pretty general rule because I think most people in America and the UK don't need to steal to like be fed. Yeah, anyway.
Right, but only like 10% of people steal anyway. Like, it's not like everyone is stealing. I mean, and like a pretty large proportion of people who are stealing are people who are
Wait,
who have
do you
money
think
troubles.
that
Wait, I have a
when all these
question.
retailers are increasing their security and putting their prices up or even closing stores, is that just like hyperbole to you, or what? Do you think
Well,
that's not just,
we've
like,
already
not an
had the
issue?
data that demonstrates it from the store owners. This is not due to shoplifting. This is due to expending unnecessary resources
Also,
and preventing shoplifting.
There was
That for one,
not, that
and I
doesn't
want to
account
make
for all
another
of
I
point.
have a question.
Most
People
But we
retailers
haven't
saying-
seen data in support of
data
that
shows
either.
keep
So
on-
that is a statement that stands in need of some
Matt.
kind of
You keep
quantitative
on making-
justification.
I can give you a source from the
We'll
UK that
get
says
to it, I
shoplifting has been
promise.
increasing
You
this
keep
year.
on making
but-
a point about how shoplifting correlates with everything else going up and getting worse. You're saying like shoplifting is what drives up the price. How are we to say that people aren't just shoplifting more because the price went up? That's usually how it correlates. You keep on taking these things where like you're acting like people like shoplifted and then ruin the economy. Like the economy can't do that on its own. Like
I'm not
people
saying that they-
respond to the conditions that they're in. They're not like creating them by just shoplifting. It's incredibly like that's like such a minute problem in like the large scale of things that's causing
one
people
of
to
the
suffer.
conditions that we're in is that shoplifters generally, even if they take thousands of dollars worth of goods at once, are getting away with it. That's one of the conditions, which means people are more likely to do it, right? Do you disagree with that?
I mean, yeah, no, I think that.
Well, I
that
mean,
should
you and
probably
me,
try
for
and stop
example,
people
like I don't think you and
stealing.
me, if we perceive that we could get away with it, would therefore shoplift any chance we get.
Well,
Like-
we're not the entire statistical like sample of a country, so yeah.
No, I understand, but it's not simply the case that every single individual within a country, if they perceive that they can get away with it, will shoplift. That's simply.
Will
I'm not
more
saying
or
everyone.
less?
Come on, wait, you're smarter.
But
than
if you're
that, so
if
you
you're
know that.
if
I'm
you're
not saying
talking
everyone
no
would-
no,
I'm
but
saying
if
it would go up.
if you're saying that the perception that people can get away with it will necessarily cause an increase in the amount of people shoplifting sort of in aggregate, and that will simply extend to everybody, that simply doesn't follow.
Well, generally, people commit crimes for a number of reasons. One of those reasons is that there's not enough of a deterrent, right? And it seems that
Necessarily,
there isn't much of a deterrent for
necessarily,
shoplifting.
So what,
but
they're just doing
deterrence
it just
deterrence can be
cause?
multifarious. It's not simply
Some
the,
people steal but to turn a profit. That's one reason people might steal. People
Sure.
steal to cut
but
drugs.
we're
people
now
steal
we're
for
now
all
we're
kinds of
talking
reasons,
about
yeah.
motives as opposed to deterrence, right? You switched.
Well, but you need both. They're not mutually exclusive.
No, they aren't mutually
I think
exclusive.
the problem that people are talking about when it comes to retail theft, organized retail theft, is that there is no deterrent. And this is what retailers are saying. This is what governments are saying. This is what politicians the problem. And this is what law enforcement says is that it seems to be very easy to get
that
away
was
with
interesting.
stealing thousands of dollars worth of stuff. Is
I
that
mean, them locking up stuff behind security things that you have to ding the employer for is a deterrent, no?
that's one? Well, that's kind of like a deterrent, but that also means that you have to pay for extra security, and the price gets offset.
Well, not necessarily, because it's
probably not
typically
the
not
best way to-
security that has the keys to the case.
I
It's
also typically.
No.
I
That's
also
actually the
typically-
opposite. No, that's the opposite though. The expense is the case. When you go, for example, to the pharmacy aisle and you have to buy condoms behind a case, very embarrassing, by the way. You have to talk to a retail employee. You're not talking to a security guard.
Yep.
That's the person who unlocks
Which
the
means
case
they
for
have
you.
to hire. Which means they have to hire more employers to run around the
No,
store.
they don't. No. That's not true at all.
Additional responsibility.
That's not
Which
true
is
at all.
which is why I think it's personally I'd rather not have to get everything in a shop from behind a case. So I'd maybe prefer that at least for a start, the repeat offenders, which seem to be making up like a very disproportionate amount of the thefts, is that they can either be put in jail where they can't shoplift anymore, or they can get fined to a point that it's not actually worth the risk to do it.
Wonder what sentence, out of like curiosity, what sentence do you think is appropriate for like a repeat offender for theft?
6 months.
I
That
haven't
hasn't
thought
even
about it.
exceeded. That hasn't even like exceeded a felony amount.
I haven't thought about a particular number.
You have to
for
spend a
years.
week with
Maybe I
Aaron.
have to get back to you on that.
Based.
They have to go on a WIC panel, okay? One WIC panel for one thievery charge, okay? Okay, that's what has to happen. Lauren, you had a question, but I want to get to Max. So, Lauren, ask your question if
Yeah.
it's quick, and then we'll get to Max. And I see you, Aaron. We'll get to you too. Don't worry.
Okay, yeah. So President Sunday, you're like, oh, they're not hiring more people. They actually have the same
They
amount
aren't.
of employees.
They aren't.
So you're like, all the employees are the proletariat, and we should
Huh?
protect
No,
them.
no.
and we should
Employees are
defend
employees are
them.
lumpen proletariat. You got that kind of mixed up. But go on.
Okay, fine.
Are employees lumpen
the employees
proletariat?
are-
Yeah, they're like retail workers.
the,
They're
the
unskilled.
employees are
No, that's not
struggling
what-
and
Is it not? I thought lumpen proletariat was like the
lumpen
unskilled
proletariat are like so fucked by the system that they can't
We
even
don't
work.
even know the
People-
question
they're
because you're
proletariat,
deciding
they don't have
to
class
just,
consciousness.
we're
They're just
arguing about what
political.
she's meaning by
The
a specific
dregs.
No,
word.
no, no, no.
Let
The
her ask
lumpen. No, no.
question.
Hang on. Wait. The lumpen proletariat are just those members of the proletariat who are lack awareness of the collective interests.
This has
as
nothing to do with
Yeah,
the
it does
question you
actually.
asked.
Wait. Please just shut up
Oh
for
my
one
God.
goddamn second. So very quickly, as a point of information, this is important. The lumpen proletariat are those members of the proletariat who lack awareness of themselves as a class. So, for example, when you have lumpen
right.
proletariat like retail workers who are policing other lower class people, for example, chasing them out into the parking lot because they're shoplifting meat, those would be lumpen proletariat. Sorry, as you were, Lauren.
So
What is the
Okay,
question?
so-
Ask your question again, please.
Yeah. So you're saying they're not hiring more people; they're just making those employees do a significant amount of more work by running
Exactly.
around
That's
and-
exactly what they're doing. They are making the limited
so
number of
you're
employees they already
pro-
have do more. Correct.
So you're So you're for that because if you're for
No, I'm not.
shoplifting and therefore
I'm not for shoplifting.
Then
I
you
presented in
would
my
be
opening
for
statement, if you'll recall,
shoplifting.
arguments against shoplifting.
No, just
Wait,
Lauren
so
thinks
then
that
you could
the only
support
reason that they're doing that is
walking-
because of shoplifting.
No. Well, I mean that
No,
is the only reason why
the
they're doing it.
reason
That is
they have
shoplifting. That's
those-
correct.
the
Why
reason
else would they put
have
them
the-
behind cases?
Oh my god.
They're not putting them behind cases
I'm
because they're
never
not
finishing.
shoplifting.
Yeah, they're putting them
Madam.
behind cases because they're shoplifting. If they were prosecuting the shoplifters, they wouldn't need to put them behind cases. But you're not for prosecuting the shoplifters, so you are for putting them behind
I mean,
cases.
you're
even though
presupposing
that's
that
gonna
if we
move
lock
the
them
work
Put the
all
rate.
shoplifters
Can I
behind
finish?
cases.
Can I
They would
Huzzah!
get rid of
Can I
that.
finish the sentence?
Finally.
Can I finish the sentence, Aaron? Is that okay with you?
No, because you're presupposing that if they locked up every single repeat offender and shoplifter, that they would go back on those security measures when in reality they're probably going to be here to stay.
If those repeat offenders were locked up in the first place, they would have never needed the cases.
That's so true.
If
It's a
locking people up
hypothesis.
helps
It's a
crime,
nice
how
hypothesis
come
here, okay?
America's got so many people locked up but so many criminals still? It doesn't work. The American justice system doesn't work.
I feel like for different crimes, you have different like problems and solutions, right?
Right, but do you folks agree that we should be instating like real solutions, like fixing the welfare system, or perhaps something like a UBI? Because if you are
I
against
don't know.
shoplifting,
Sorry, go on.
what do you mean?
I don't know why whenever we have these discussions, people like feel like you have to just choose one or the other. I mean, like, I don't know, like I didn't do criminology for that long, but one of the prime examples they gave us of like stopping a crime epidemic, like the knife epidemic in Glasgow, was that you can approach it from both ends. One end was that they gave
The
like
pointy end.
apprenticeships and social programs and things like that to get people off the streets. The other side was the negative reinforcement, which is that they took a bunch of people who were carrying knives and gangsters and jailed them for 25 years to set an example to the others. I don't know why one excludes the other. Like you can do both. And with the
Because we
shoplifters,
should
with repeat offenders, it seems to be the case that some of these people are just kind of incorrigible. Like, yeah, maybe they just need to be fucked off so that they can stop
But
stealing en masse.
indefinitely?
I'm
Yeah.
sure
Definitely
some
we
people...
love
No,
them
not
indefinitely.
indefinitely, but at least they should
Well,
be
no,
jailed.
but
They should have.
No,
What
not
we're
in that
saying is
way.
that they need to be fucked.
I'm
they
not
need-
saying incorrigible like forever. No.
But like when they
I don't
come
believe
back,
life
they're
sentences
Let's say,
generally, no.
let's say I'm going to be charitable and I'm gonna say that it's actually just a minority of shoplifters who are doing it out of necessity. Let's say 30%. If there was a policy you could instate to get those 30% of people to stop shoplifting because they no longer have to, would you do that? Would you be willing to support that and advocate for that?
I
So I see
think
people complaining about these things a lot, but then they never actually propose an actual solution outside of like just punitive,
do you
usual
think I
punitive
haven't
shit, right?
well
I don't think anything.
well we don't disagree so personally we don't disagree with like the UBI and welfare measures and things like that. Yeah, we don't disagree with that.
Well, but
it seems to
you
me that we
should be
disagree with the punitive measures. That's why I thought it'd be more interesting to explore that one.
But I wanted just like a recommended sentencing guideline for someone who's like a repeat offender like 3 times or whatever for petty theft that hasn't even amounted to more than like a felony amount or a few
Well-
$100s.
Aaron, you're not listening to me. How many times did I say organized retail theft? Like repeat
How much
offenders.
of shoplifting is organized retail theft? Do we? 'Cause I
30%,
tried to
I
find
think.
okay,
statistics
but
on this. Do you know
the
this?
difference between
I don't know as a percentage, but we do know that it's like
Hang on.
between anything between like 20 and 70 billion
It is
dollars.
rising.
the difference between organized retail theft and non-organized retail theft is literally just there are multiple people involved in the collection of this material from the store, right? So the relevant question is, what kind of sentencing would result in either deterrence or a cessation of organized, in particular, retail theft? If you don't
There's
have it,
added charges that you. You get added charges for organized retail theft, and it depends if it's cross-state and how many people
I
you
understand.
have conspiratorial
No, I understand that
charges,
there are.
so you could-
I understand that there are different consequences. The question is, are there consequences that work? What's the threshold? Because this is the reason why this comes into play. If the argument is that shoplifting at an organized scale has some kind of community, like it constitutes some kind of community harm, and if your response to that is some kind of increased penalty or some kind of specific penalty for that, either you need to demonstrate that this actually has a positive impact either on the community or it diminishes the amount of organized theft, or you are doing so for retributive reasons. Which, by the way, is an argument you can make, but you need to make it.
I mean,
You
how
asked me
hard
there.
of an argument is that to
wasn't
make
asking,
that
I was
it's
just saying something.
retributive? That's not really like a difficult argument. It's
What?
clearly, but so
Clearly
when you're-
what? What's clearly
the
what?
one thing that
Hang on,
you
I didn't catch what you said. Can you say it again?
retributive.
Because you
said
keep
you-
talking when she's talking. Of course you can't
Well, she
hear
was
her
talking when I
because
was
you're
talking,
busy
so I couldn't
talking.
hear it.
How can anyone
No,
hear
I
what she's saying? Or
This
under your fucking voice?
push to me
They can't
getting
hear
horse
you.
the club.
Dude, it's not a hard argument to make that it's retributive because in the scenario that you just laid out, then what other if it's not going to actually deter the theft, the increased like sentencing guidelines is not necessarily to. I mean, it can be to prevent, but honestly, preventative measures it doesn't really show.
It's just
There's
to
very
administer
little
the
data
justice of God.
There's very little data that shows that increasing the sentencing range for a crime actually deters the crime that much. What actually deters crime is the number of police officers and the likelihood to get caught. So if you're going to be increasing, so you're saying that you have to actually show, like data-wise, that increasing the sentence would correlate with a decrease in shoplifters, and that's just not how laws are written or what is necessary to increase the sentencing.
I don't know how that was addressing anything that I said, but
Well, Loner, give it a
It
shot.
was literally addressing the exact thing. Oh my god. Did you go to law school?
no.
Okay, Loner, give it a shot.
I think
Loner, give it a shot.
apparently last year and into this year, I think like 9 or 10 states have put in laws to increase the sentences for organized retail theft. I think it seems to range from like a few months to over a year. But, yeah. Seems okay. I wouldn't have an issue with that. Maximum of 15 years in jail.
Do you have an issue with that, Straighterade? If someone is continuously being caught for stealing, and it doesn't seem to stop them. They get caught, they do some community service, they pay a fine, but the next day or the next week or the next month they're back at it again. Is there ever a point where you say, "Okay, time for jail"?
Who went to jail? Who went to jail for the sweatshops in Bangladesh?
Aaron,
You,
answer my
Aaron?
question.
But yeah, I said there is. There can be
Well,
cause or
what's
whatever.
your
Like
line?
working within
Sure,
the
what's your line?
framework of the like American legal system that we have now.
I want your moral line. I don't care about what is. I want you to tell me
What
what
it ought
ought
to
to be.
be.
Ought to be, please.
I mean, ideally, no. Like, I don't think the majority of people need to be locked up for
Well,
nonviolent
someone
crime.
can
The
steal
United States
1,000
has like
times. 1,000 times come and go into a store, break into
No.
Walmart, break into
no, because
Walgreens,
you're
and
assuming
steal
that
1,000 times.
Wait, you're presupposing that just because I don't share the same opinion on like what the punishment should be, that there should be no attempt to remedy that person from repeat offending.
What I'm asking is, if your remedy does not work, is there ever a point where you
The question is, if my
towards-
remedy doesn't work, a rehabilitation or providing people with the resources that they need to deter them from stealing,
Yeah, they keep
then
stealing.
yes, I would look at
Okay.
more punitive measures if that was what
Such as
meaningfully
jail.
deterred crime. Yes, such as jail. If that
Okay, fair
if
enough.
there was data that suggested that meaningfully prevented people from repeat offending, yes, I would.
What do you think,
data
Romax?
that-
And Ali?
There's data-
Yeah, I'm curious what Max and Ali think. Max, where is the point where someone has repeatedly stolen, repeatedly, again, has been caught for this, it's been proven in court that they've done it, they keep getting 30-day community service, they keep getting fines. At what point do you say, okay, no, just throw this person in jail? Is there a point?
I mean, I think that you it depends on what you've tried, right? With like pretty much any of these cases that people will like mention, I mean, there will be like a quantity of people who do just like compulsively do bad shit. That can happen, that can exist, and those people probably do need to be like protected in a way that they don't end up, you know, hurting other people or bringing harm to themselves in some way. But for the large majority, this just isn't really the case, and you can usually figure out how to solve these issues. But yeah, you know, for some people, maybe heavier sentencing would be necessary. But I think in the large majority of cases, you could find another like economic or rehabilitative solution.
You're okay with the
I think
15
only
years?
is actually for prison, but let me ask directly just to make sure. What's your answer to this question, Ali? I'm curious.
I think it a little bit depends on the amount and the like repetition. Obviously, if someone's stealing like 50-cent bag of chips, I don't really care. I don't think they should be jailed. But if someone's stealing enough and they do it repeat 3 times, they went through community service,
so
whatever,
every
then
day-
be jailed. So
Every
like,
day a
3
man
times-
goes into Walmart, and every day he steals a bag of chips. He doesn't need to, right? Like, it's just what he does.
Cut his balls off.
There's no point in time where you don't throw this person in jail for at least.
I'm
like,
not gonna lie, nah, over a bag of chips, and I really couldn't.
Okay, fair enough. That's your
yeah.
answer. That's your answer. Okay, excellent.
Loner
gang?
Box, you're okay with a 15-year sentence for organized shoplifting?
I think that would have to be pretty extreme if it was. There'd have to be some violence.
Like, how much
involved in that
product
for
is worth
15
15 years in your judgment?
I don't know if it turns a neighborhood into a food desert by closing the only place that's close to the people in a certain community. That's pretty fucking rough. But
Yeah, but
no,
that's
generally
not
15
why they
years,
would
like,
be sentenced. For
and if they
15
fucking
years.
beat someone up while they were doing it, no,
Like
I don't think 15 years is
Walgreens,
generally.
Walgreens or a Walmart or something like that is going to be more likely a contributor to it being a food desert than the opposite.
Well, retailers can close if the shoplifting, the amount they lose in shoplifting doesn't make it worth it. But either way, I'm generally not for like massive punitive measures just for their own sake.
Fair enough.
I don't know. I haven't thought much about how many years, but 15 does seem quite
that's
extreme.
Fair. That's fair. I'll take it.
Okay, gang. This has been a panel. This has been a show.
This has indeed
I
been a
want to
panel.
make sure to respect everyone's time, and you guys are talky, so I'm going to give a little extra time for closing statements. We are not ending the show. If you need to go, I understand. But if you'd like to stay, there's some people who want to come on and question you, and we will do that. So if you are in the audience and you want to interrogate some of the guests, please feel free to jump backstage, hit Discord and chat. If my mods can please throw my Discord link into the various chats on Kick, Twitch, and YouTube, please do so. And gang, if you're liking this content, like, subscribe, do all that. It's been great. Don't steal this content. Do it, buy into it with at least a like. That would be nice. Okay, fair enough. But with that, yeah, so we're going to get to closing statements. Please tell people where they can find you, because a lot of people want to sign with you. And thank you for the Prime sub, Royal Air Horse. I really appreciate you. Okay, we're going to start in reverse order. We started. Aaron, go ahead. Closing thoughts. Where can people find you?
People can find me on Twitter, Instagram. All my socials are at Straighterade or at Straighterade_. I just want to point out that when I said joke and jest that shoplifting is the language of the unheard, I'm saying that because if anybody actually reads the context of what MLK was talking about in that speech, The Other America, he says riots are the language of the unheard, but the first thing that he does is condemn the violence of the riots, and I'm doing the same. I'm saying that I would never prescribe or make it a moral maxim that people ought to shoplift or steal, but that it can be an understandable crime, and it's more complicated. Theft in general is more complicated than I think people are willing to admit. In the same way that we can see that not all, like when you kill somebody, sometimes that can be in self-defense, which is justified, but simply killing somebody is not always murder. I wish people would be able to see the kind of areas of gray that accompany the reasons that people decide to steal and commit theft or whatever. So yeah, it's my closing statement.
Where can people find you?
I'm at Straighterade on everything, or Straighterade_.
Everything, gang. Check her out. She's great. Thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed it. And please don't be a stranger. Loaderbox, let's hear.
I've said all I need to. It's fine. I'll just give my time to someone else.
Okay. Carl, Max, what you got?
Well, my name is at Ceremonious Hurt on Twitter, and on YouTube I'm at CarlMaxLive. My closing thoughts on the whole thing are that I think people tend to, when they think about a thing, they often think about it through exclusively one lens. You know, leftists will take crime, they'll think it's exclusively really okay and good all the time. Libs or right-wingers will say it's always terrible and evil. I think people need to, really try and knuckle down and actually figure out what the issues are caused by, what we could do to solve a large quantity of the problem, which, we could via economic solutions and stuff. And that the only solution isn't just to, limit these people's freedom, which a lot of people seem to believe. So yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you for being here. It was a pleasure. We're trying to set something up between Short Fat Otaku and this gentleman, but we'll see how that goes. President Sunday.
Dev? That guy?
That's Dev.
Oh,
We'll see how that goes.
yes, I would like that.
We'll see how it goes. I'm trying. President Sunday, what you got?
You will find me skulking around the back wall at Walmart. 1 box of condoms for every finger, 1 package of formula for every toe.
Be based and beautiful, morally neutral. Lauren, what you got?
Yeah, I find it sad that this conversation went the way that it went. The area of gray that y'all wanted to point at, calling theft self-defense of the poverty of the system, is quite literally insane, considering the poorest person in America has not even understood what poverty is like in other parts of the world, like Africa. The people here don't starve of starvation the way they do in other countries.
Can I respond to this or no?
It's closing statements. We're not ending.
Okay.
Stay if you want to respond. But let her have her closing statement. My God. Go ahead.
It's just quite a closing statement, but all right.
We're not having like mass starvation the way that we see it.
We starve whitely.
Where there's actually poor people, and yeah, when you are in self-defense with murder, it's because somebody is like literally physically coming at you in the moment. When you're stealing computers to later sell because maybe you might need food and also like a vacation, that's not self-defense. This entire argument is really sad and retarded. You could find me at Lauren De Laguna everywhere, at Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter.
You are a certifiable nutball.
Thank you for being here. I appreciate you, and I hope to see you again.
Yep. I have more degrees than you, President Sunday.
Boom.
You want to around with your book?
Okay, we can fight in a second. We can fight in a second.
They don't measure mental illness in degrees, my friend.
His turn. I'm not going to steal Ollie's turn. Ollie, your turn is now. Go ahead.
Yeah, so my argument was never that stealing is good or that you should do it or any of these statements. Just simply that like someone's stealing, it's not on the responsibility of the worker or the customer to report or do anything about it. Rather, it's on the responsibility of the company. They can hire security if they need to. You can find me on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Ali the Sagir.
Okay, Ali the Sagir. Check him out. Thank you again for coming on my show. I hope you enjoyed it. And gang, like I said, if you like this content, hit like, subscribe. Let me tell you what we got coming up before we end this entirely and we go to open calls. Tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to be hosting a debate between Sansol and Non-Smoker on the Holodomor. And then Friday, at also 6 p.m., I'll be having Turkey Tom, Reservoir, Flowtrace, and maybe a couple others to talk about copyright and React content. That should be fun. Check us out. It'll be great. You don't want to miss a moment of it.
That's not going to be fun. Copyright? Really? Another copyright debate?
Copyright and React content.
What's Non-Smoker saying about the Holodomor?
You'll find out tomorrow.
Did they smoke? Is that why Stalin was justified?
What's the debate topic? Is there a prompt?
Was the Holodomor a genocide?
Oh no. Okay.
Oh no, indeed. Pray for Sansol. Keep him in your prayers. We want him to do well.
Condolences.
So we'll see how it goes. With that, if you were like a lot of you, I don't see you backstage, but a lot of you have been DMing me. A lot of you have been blowing up my Twitter tags, blowing up my Twitter DMs, my Discord DMs, saying, I want on this, I want to ask these questions. But where are you in this hour of need? Where are you when it's time to put your money, so to speak, where your mouth is? Get in my backstage, and I'll bring you on one at a time to ask your questions until we're bored with you, and then we'll take you out. But please, exclamation point Discord. Oh, we got one right away. What you got?
Hello.
Yep, you're live.
Excellent. All right, so just a quick clarifying thing to the losers that defend stealing. I believe Ali and Carl.
I knew he had a hot avatar.
Wait, what?
I knew he had a
if
hot
you want
avatar.
to turn your camera on and let him know who you really are, that's too.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry. I just got out of the gym. Sorry, I'm just walking to my car. I've been listening to you guys.
My gym, yeah. Oh, like.
Sorry,
Ooh,
hey,
I
I,
like it.
I know
Yeah.
you always catch me. This is why I normally don't do debates, and because I'm always busy around this
Okay,
time.
well,
But anyway,
the
okay.
isn't working.
All right.
But go on.
Oh, it's not? Okay.
No. Anyway,
Well,
ask your question.
So, I want to know to what degree someone said earlier, oh, if you could steal from, Mr. Walmart, it's a real family that made that company anyway. And if they didn't notice, would that be okay? And I want to know, why is that important? Why is it important that if they noticed?
Oh, you're asking me about my stealing from Mr. Walmart's house question?
Yeah. No. Specifically, you said, did they notice? You said that quick. You said that very quickly, like you had that in the chamber. You're like ready to have it out. Okay. So what do you got?
Well, I don't really want to stick with that one. You know, I don't think you should be breaking into anybody's house.
What?
Really.
Come on.
I know, but I will give you some justification though, okay? I think that a lot of people who are like hyper rich do tend to have an excess of things that they might not like ever use, and then therefore if it's something that they never use and then got taken from them and they were never aware that it got taken, I don't think that would actually like matter because it wouldn't.
It's just like an object permanence kind of thing, like, if it never existed in the reality, then it doesn't hurt them. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, kinda, right? I mean, how would they be offended if they didn't know it existed?
Oh, man. So, on that reality, couldn't we steal from anyone if they never noticed?
Well, yeah, but most people would probably notice because most people don't have like.
No, I'm not asking. No. Hold on. Wait a second. Why are you adding that? We're not talking about that. We're talking specifically about the noticing part. So, if you steal from anyone and they don't notice, therefore it's fine. That's what you're sticking with.
You're gonna have to let me actually give you a proper answer here. I'm not gonna make any like absolute statements like that because that would be retarded and like a really shitty way to make
your statement was
point.
retarded. That's what I'm trying to point out. Thank you for finally.
I know you believe my Laura. I mean, you've even got Lauren's support. She's like a Mensa head, but like still, no. I
am like the head of Mensa. You're correct. Yeah, I do.
I believe it, Lauren. I believe it. I support
So
you.
you're okay with stealing valor? I see. Go ahead.
We need to put a freeze on Lauren so we can figure out what the hell's
You
going
don't
on.
believe it,
in
Luke?
the Air Force. It's not stolen valor.
You're in the Air
In the Air
Force.
Oh, really? What did you do? I was in the Air Force for 6 years. I'm curious.
I only did 2 years, so you like actually did the Air Force. I only was a cadet at the academy for 2 years.
Then you can't.
okay,
She went on a field trip to the airport.
Still sat in SEER.
You weren't even enlisted. Okay, officers don't. do anything.
Officer training, OTS.
Okay, fair enough.
I should finish my point. Yeah, I
Answer
mean,
the question, please. Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on who it is, right? If it's somebody who has so much shit that they wouldn't notice if it got taken, I don't really see why they necessarily need to have all of that. Like if somebody, let's say someone has 2 million boxes of
That's not what we
noodles
were
in
arguing
their
about. We
house.
were arguing about the noticing part. We're not arguing about somebody being a mega rich person or a super.
Do you understand
poor
how
person.
if somebody has more money and they can afford more things, they'll be
That's
less
not
aware
what
if
my
something
question
gets
was.
taken
My
away?
question
He's
was
trying to
about
isolate
your
the noticing
statement
variable.
of noticing.
He's trying to
Well, you
isolate the
can't
variable of
isolate
noticing.
it though. You can't. You can't just take
hypothetical.
like one part of my
Why
point.
can't you isolate that
Hey,
variable?
I'm
That was
poor as
one of
fuck,
the
alright,
most
but I
important
have-
parts of your statement.
Like I could say that I don't have that much money, but I do have a few fairly valuable things in my house that I might not notice for like a year or two if they're gone or ever. Really.
Well, if
so.
it was a year or two, then that wouldn't count. I'm talking about things
Okay,
that could
ever, yeah.
disappear. They would never
So
notice.
time?
I'm a bit of a hoarder, so I do actually have a few things that probably I would never notice, but it would be okay to still
Or you're
think
hot.
I wouldn't notice. Or...
I mean, yeah, if there
Yeah,
was
I
somebody
have
who
to
might like
go.
need that
I
item,
understand.
you need to go.
I have to go. I
I'm
love y'all
heartbroken.
very much.
I love you too.
Especially the sexy man on the phone and Loner Box, and of course Wick TV, and I'll say I love you too, Aaron. Okay, bye
I love
y'all.
you too, Lauren.
Wow.
I see how it is.
Does that?
I really
does that
want to
answer
get
your
into that.
question? And
Over.
oh my God, your cam is actually working now when she left. I don't know.
That's so fucked.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Poor
Okay,
fellow.
well, anyway.
Yeah, just
So
share.
no, we're still trying to isolate that variable, like W. Leonardbox was saying, that it's about the noticing. It's not about how rich somebody is or how poor they are. It's about the noticing. It's about the object's permanence side of it. That seemed like to be a very important part for you, correct?
Well, no, it was in relation to the fact that rich people tend to have a lot of shit, and sometimes they don't need all of it. It was
But then
like
I think I
about
got
that.
you. I think you also just said it would be okay to steal something from me if I never notice it's gone as well, even though I'm not very rich. Or like so.
I don't, as I said, I don't think people should be going into each other's houses. But if there was like, if things just disappeared and landed in somebody else's hands without anything going between that, if it was a thing that you never needed, and that person like
Sure,
desperately
but Carl,
needed it, and it made their
Just
life
real quick,
way
I
better.
have a question. I have a question.
But I got a question, and I'm a participant.
I'm going to
I'm
ask
not a moderator.
Max. Okay, this is the after panel. Everything, guys. Max. So if they don't notice and it doesn't harm them, they never know, then it really doesn't harm them, and it's okay. Well, what if someone's passed out drunk? Okay, they blacked out. They're at a party alone, right? Like no one else. Knows. Someone assaults them sexually, but they never know. No one ever tells them. They never know. There's no after effects. They don't get pregnant. There's nothing.
Oh my god.
Is that person doing something wrong, even though the person isn't harmed?
Yeah.
Is that person doing something that somebody could be legally charged for? Just asking for a friend.
You can be charged for stealing or raping.
Yeah, what are you talking about,
rape
President?
is bad.
Jesus Christ.
Rape
both of
is
those things
bad.
I think rape is
was a
bad
joke.
in a much more morally objectivist way than stealing is bad, you know?
But I think the
feel like
variable
those
in
are
both cases
pretty
was that they don't
distinctly different
notice.
things.
In both cases, the victims don't notice. And I thought it was like the not noticing thing that made the rich person.
So Max,
stealing
the issue is here is that the crime that is being pointed to seems to have an
I just
existence
wonder why I do
independent of the psychological or personal harm that it causes. So, for example, if the person never noticed, for example, an instance of rape, we may still regard that as being egregious. However, due to it not being noticed, by definition, it wouldn't have a psychological impact. You see the problem there.
Holy shit! So you defend Cosby then? You're okay?
What?
You're saying that
No.
since he drugged
No,
people,
God, no. No. The entire point is that it's wrong
they
regardless.
didn't remember, right?
Yeah, the point is it's wrong regardless of whether or not they have an experience of it.
Okay, so therefore,
not following
also
what I'm
stealing
saying.
is bad.
Yeah, but do you think the same for
Okay.
stealing? I'm guessing Sunday. I'm guessing you think the same for
Thank
stealing
you.
as well.
Not
right?
trying to get you the
necessarily.
stealing back to the theme
Well,
park.
I was getting
We're
there, but
tying
you
that
couldn't
together.
follow the sentence because you're drunk or something. Which
No,
is
because
odd for me to say.
you always are so, be more succinct, man. Please speak
No.
more succinctly.
No.
This has always
Be
been an
more
issue.
succinct.
I'll
Okay,
tell you
we have some
what.
other
You
people in
shave,
line.
I'll be more
We're gonna cut
succinct.
this off because we have other people in line. I want to respect people's time.
Oh, I was
You
just
got
getting
one
good.
more parting shot. One more parting shot, mister.
You look like a garden
we got-
gnome.
I don't care. W to Lonerbox and to all the people that defended not stealing, losers, everybody
Okay.
else. Aaron, you're cool.
Oh, thank you.
Cool.
I'm never recovering.
Just me
from
then?
That's
this.
cool. He gets.
That guy doesn't like me.
He does win in the end.
Fuck.
Oh no. Okay, what you got? Ethan Fucker. Go ahead. With a name like this, how can we lose? What you got for us? Bass, beautiful.
Oh,
You're
wait,
live
hold
on
on,
air
my
and your audio isn't
microphone
working.
does not
Okay,
seem
here we
to be
go.
working.
Here you go. Okay, what
Just
you
a
got?
minute. I just
You're
made-
live.
I just stumbled in.
Oh, hey, Ron. How you doing?
Let me do some prep and then I'll talk.
Okay, well, I'm gonna move you out till you're done.
No, not
Okay.
Ron.
We're gonna bring him back. Don't worry, but he wasn't ready, so we're gonna
No, you won't.
keep it going. You're live. What you got?
Hello.
Oh, hey, food
All right.
stamps.
Hi.
Yes.
We were talking about you
I heard
earlier.
you guys. Yeah, I know. You guys were talking about food stamps. Wait, what the fuck? Lauren isn't here anymore. I was gonna ask her a really interesting question. What the fuck? Okay, hold on.
Aw.
Okay, so Carl, Marks.
Yeah.
Why? Okay, all right.
Max.
So I have a Max. So
I mean,
like
if you're talking about me.
Yeah.
okay.
To what extent are you like defending like stealing or shoplifting or whatever?
Within like I think a degree of necessity. I also believe that people should live a certain level of comfort. But if that isn't attainable without ruining everything for everybody else, then they shouldn't do that. But most evidence that we've seen about shoplifting doesn't really prove that it will that one person stealing some like more items themselves that they need is gonna like ruin everything, and it's gonna like make the shop shut down and stuff. I think it can be done within necessity, and I think it's pretty fair. Like especially that 10% of Americans who are food insecure, I think they have full right to shoplift, because if they're not getting enough money to be able to actually feed themselves and their families, then they should get that food in a different way.
Okay, so what if there are some like people who are like in fact like shoplifting for fun? Like people who are shoplifting for, how would you determine that criteria, and where would you draw the line then?
Well, you figure out what their circumstances are, right? You can see how much money they've got, if they've got any debt. You can talk to them and figure it out. I mean, if there are people who are doing it totally unnecessarily, you should probably stop them. You should probably you should in place things in order to stop these people. But if we're at the point where I'm like able to pass laws and stuff, I would already have passed laws to get rid of the other like thieves who are actually people who are doing it in like because out of need, because they didn't have enough resources. And thus you'd only have the people who are doing it unnecessarily left, and it would be much easier to like take care of and to prevent people from doing it unnecessarily.
I mean, let's be very fair, right? So you're basically saying that since this is such a non-issue statistically, then would you say that would you allow like shoplifting and stealing like everywhere, that this shouldn't even be illegal at all? That like
no,
if somebody,
I'm saying that
then where do you draw
certain
the line,
circumstances,
right?
some criteria need to be fulfilled of like quality of life and of how people are surviving in order for.
Right, but at the end of the day, the cops can't just talk to literally everybody. It's not like everybody can just simply like talk to everybody and determine the circumstances of every single person.
Right, that's why we in place policies that prevent these people from existing at all.
Hold on, let me finish.
Right?
Let me finish. So the police
I want to hear from other
cannot.
people here too, but go on.
Yeah, sure. The police cannot simply have enough resources to talk to everybody, do a background check, to do whatever. If you want to argue that point, that's fine. If they want to dig into the background, that's fine. But you would also have to argue to increase the funding for the police department as well. So unless you want
if
to
it helps
argue,
them take care of crime better and it helps them do it in a non-violent way, I don't really
that's
take
perfectly
issue with
fine.
it. I don't care about that.
All right.
We do
I'm not
have
gonna
quite a
be
line
anti-cop
brewing, but I
funding
want to
if it
get
makes
other
it better
people's
for the
opinions
communities.
before we let you go, Food Stamps. So any other thoughts on her questioning and lines of questioning?
Yeah, unfortunately, I wish Lauren was here because I have a question for her. But other than that, I'll see you guys. Okay. Bye. Thank you for letting me in. See ya.
Take care.
I wonder what the question was going to be.
I wonder what that was.
I'm
too.
so curious.
But I
man.
guess she can DM me and we can maybe set that up at another date. Let's bring in Lisa is a fascist.
That's promising.
Yeah. We love Lisa. Lisa's a treasure. Go ahead, Lisa.
Hey there, Rick. It's great to see you. And Ali, I see you. It's nice to meet you. Anyway, what I was going to talk about was EBT and Wick and like as in the program, not Wick as in the man. And
WIC to be clear.
Yes. And also the
Oh, hey Lisa, how are you?
Hey there, Sunday. It's wonderful to speak to you.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. As you were.
Oh no, go ahead. You can interrupt me anytime you want. Let's see. What I was gonna say was I have heard people lose their jobs because of a lot of, it might be shrinkage, what they call shrinkage, when people inside like the actual employees are stealing, but they will also fire you if you don't stop people from stealing so much, like at a Family Dollar or something. You people in the up northward probably don't have those, but they're like a low-income little variety store that they put in places where there's food deserts. And
what's your question?
And I said I saw it happen. They were actually talking about it, and then magically one day that Family Dollar was gone. And so I'm thinking that it really did close down because of theft.
Maybe.
But my other thing is, I do believe that in most cases now, unless you're really in a bind and you can't get anywhere to get food, is there's just really a lot of alternatives. There's there's EBT. It's not great, but it's a lot better than it used to be. There was a time when I was getting $16 a month, and I am really poor. I am on disability, and
I think
but
you've
now
actually,
I'm like
if I may, I think you've actually potentially introduced an interesting sort of wrench to throw into the discussion. So let's presume, for argument's sake, that this proposition that businesses were closing due to shrinkage due to theft was true. Would that fundamentally change the argument of either side? Not necessarily, like, obviously Loner Box, etc. Their side, they were presuming that, but would it change the position of either Max or Straighterade, or what do I call you again, Sir? Ali?
Ali.
Ollie, you first. I'm moderating now. This is now my stream. I've
Oh,
got your audience in Wick anyways.
If there were stores that closed due to a shrinkage, theft, whatever.
Indeed, yes. Would that bear on your
no.
argument? No, not at all.
No, I mean,
Ollie says no.
yeah.
What do you think, Max? Yes?
Oh
No?
shit! I'm sorry. Sorry, I was typing in my chat. What was the question?
So
Sorry.
if it could be demonstrated through data that there are stores that are closing directly due to shrinkage, loss from theft, etc., would this change your argument? Yes or no?
Nah,
Yes.
I mean, I've been making the same point. I am anti-shoplifting as well. I just want to solve it in a different way.
Got you. Aaron, what about you?
What was the question I had stepped away?
No, it's fine. If it can be proven, demonstrated, like through data, that
Respect.
to your satisfaction, that loss, shrinkage, theft, etc., is directly responsible for stores closing down in communities, would that change your position?
No.
No.
Unless,
okay.
like,
No's all around. We got the hat trick.
Can I ask
No.
a question real quick?
though? I want some clarification though. Is like the
Please.
store in question? Is it like a mom and pop shop? Is it a corporation?
Like a
Is it,
corporation, like a Walmart or something. Maybe it's like
If
a
it's
major
Walmart,
employer
no.
locally, but regardless, it's yeah.
No, generally speaking.
the Family Dollar. If you know what those are, I don't know if you're from America,
Like a
but
dollar store?
they're in a lot of poorer
I grew
areas.
up on Family Dollar. I know what it is. And Dollar
Oh,
Tree.
wonderful!
Love me the
Yeah,
Family
Family
Dollar.
Dollar, Dollar Tree, and Dollar General. I love going to all of those.
Are you a Michigander?
Wait, what was
She-
the last thing someone said?
I asked her if she was a Michigander. She named all my local dollar stores.
Oh, me?
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm in North Carolina.
Okay.
okay.
I'm in
we got-
Texas and we have that trifecta also.
Beautiful. Lisa, we love you. You're a valued member of my community, but for now.
Thank you, Lisa.
You're gonna throw me away. I understand. I'm no longer content.
No,
Bye-bye.
you're still good. We still love you.
Take
I have
care
a
of
quick,
yourself.
I have a quick question for Loner Box.
Have a good
I mean,
night.
I guess anyone that's like anti-shoplifting, whatever. Do you guys consider like sharing Netflix passwords or like taking snacks into the theater with you as shoplifting as well, or theft?
I think it's a very different. No, I wouldn't really consider.
Why?
It's a kind of theft, but I wouldn't consider it the same as
I
shoplifting.
mean, theaters are
because I don't
food.
really know what the
Theaters
I
are,
don't-
to be fair, they are fundamentally food services at the end of the day. So, I mean, if you are taking in cheaper food from elsewhere, you are undercutting their business in a similar fashion as a shoplifter would.
But I haven't heard of. Well, first of all, people like if you're poor and a Walmart closes, you might have to go somewhere further away and more expensive. I don't know about theaters closing because people were taking in their own suites. I don't think I've ever heard about that. That became
I
a
was
massive
just
problem. then.
wondering where your like threshold of like stealing from a company lies.
I think generally don't steal, but also the retail problem is that we have like retailers closing or putting up their prices and shit like that. So I think you'd have to see some kind of consequence that affects the general clientele and the
Netflix
community.
raises their prices due to password sharing, and then theaters charge like exorbitant amounts
I
for
think
popcorn and
Netflix
candy.
have just recently made it very, very difficult to share passwords. I think they're probably justified to do that, yeah, because otherwise
they
it
upped their
gets more
price, then they made
expensive.
it difficult,
Okay.
right?
They what?
They upped their price, then they're making it more difficult. The price is still going to stay the same.
What?
Okay.
I feel like
okay.
they could have just done one of those things.
I want to.
I found
wanna hear from
Loner
Max,
Box. I
and then I
found an
want Olive to go.
article. I found an article saying that cinemas are closing down because of people sneaking snacks in. This
Wow.
isn't an
Probably bad to
article.
do. It's probably bad to do. You probably
Oh,
should.
if it's in
15
an
years,
article, then
20
it's definitely
years.
true. It's definitely
I
true.
think
If it
that's,
was in an article.
that's his point. Olive, what you got for us?
I was gonna say more, but then I missed out, so I don't really have anything. I'm just gonna say Despacito.
Why'd you cut her out?
I didn't. She cut herself out. She self-selected.
I don't believe you.
Doobie!
Doobie.
You're live.
Hello?
Yep, you're here.
Doobie.
This is really good, by the way.
Yeah, okay. You need to read literally everything else by Brandon Simpson. I will give you a reading list.
I will. This is fantastic.
Going to his
so far.
convention in November. He's my favorite author of all time. Okay. So two things really quickly. So first, I think Wix did a really bad job of relaying my chat message earlier. So what I asked him to do actually was to insult you personally, Karl Marx, both for being British and also for saying something stupid that really triggered me. Okay. So when Lonerbox brought up like news stories or articles that about shoplifting and its effect on like I think like poor communities, you hand waved it by saying that another article, some other story, was incorrect at some point. So therefore, how could we trust this article that Lonerbox is bringing up? I think that was fucking terrible. Right, that's a fucking awful position to take, especially given that when he asked you what you'd look to, what you trust, you said data, and we know that sometimes researchers flub data, right? So I don't.
Can I
so
tell you
obviously
the
it's
data
not
I was basing it
reasonable
on?
to just trust all news articles or trust all data. Obviously, you should double check things or triple check things.
Right.
But I think just hand waving his argument because you're aware of some other story where
Can I
some
explain
journalist
why
was
I
incorrect.
hand-waved the argument? Do you mind if I explain myself?
Yes.
So Walgreens, their loss to theft, I think last year was 564 million, which was 2.5% of their profits, right? This is more than both what Target and Walmart are being stolen from. And Walgreens still said that it was like a fucking bad excuse for it. So if Walgreens is losing more money via theft, I'm inclined to not believe that the other companies that are bitching about it actually have it that bad. Especially when they are making as much money as they are and theft isn't really affecting them on that great of a scale.
Wait, you're saying Walgreens isn't being affected by theft? Like they're not closing stores?
Yeah, they said that they literally
overstated
went
it,
back.
right?
Yeah, they literally made a statement saying maybe we cried too much over shoplifting, and that they regret how they handled it and that they exaggerated about it.
So basically, you inferred it to every other business that said they've closed because of shoplifting because of one company that got it wrong.
No,
exactly
I'm
what you
saying
just
that
said.
one
So
company
that's okay,
that
yeah.
lost money from
it's-
theft lost more money than the other company,
What if-
saying
okay,
that it's not
what
actually
if-
necessary to shut down.
What if we just?
That
What if we
doesn't
just?
negate the fact that other retailers
True.
have lost enough that they
True.
felt like they needed to close? But also, like even the original point
This
with the article, like because it turned out the article that I was mentioning actually went against you anyway. It did show that organized retail theft was like in the tens of billions, and also that one of the top products that was stolen was infant formula for making drugs. So I guess you got your
Tens
little
of
dunk
billions
over
isn't that much when we're talking about like every single shop. Wait, how much are we talking about?
Oh,
though?
okay,
'Cause
Max.
tens of
Just to
billions.
the original point. You don't need a case that's strong. You can simply make the inference that it is possible that other retailers are overblowing it because one was, and then you can leave that open from further investigation. You don't need to make the positive claim that they aren't. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, and so far as I understand, right, your position has nothing to do with the size of the retailer, right? So whether it's some mom and pop
No, it does.
or it does.
No, I
Okay,
made
so
that.
What's
Didn't I
the
make that
cutoff
clear
then?
before?
Okay, well I said so far as more. So if I'm correct, that's fine. So what's the cutoff? Is it they have to have like 2 locations, 5 locations, 10 locations? Where
The
does it
cutoff
okay
is
to
how
start
much
robbing
they'll
them?
be affected by it. And
How do
you?
Okay, so how do you like figure out how they're going to be affected by it? Like
By
would you
seeing how
come to
much
that
money
understanding?
that company would make otherwise, and how much shoplifting is actually affecting them.
I see. So
'Cause if
you'd
it's a
run some kind
smaller
of run
thing-
some kind of like some research to figure out how much allowing shoplifting in this
You'd
specific
use
store chain.
numbers.
Yeah, how much allowing shoplifting in this specific chain of stores would impact their bottom line, impact their stance in the community, impact their ability to hire, to keep prices low. And after you figure that out, if it's not meeting your threshold, whatever imaginary threshold that is, you just allow the shoplifting there.
I mean, yeah, if it's not like destroying the shop and they can still continue to exist, then yeah. And especially if it is like necessary and occurring from people who are like, you know, having to skip meals and so on, I think that's.
Well, okay, but you keep going to the.
So isn't that why they don't insure that?
Necessity thing.
Isn't that why they
You
don't
also said-
insure shrinkage? They don't insure shrinkage because it's just like almost guaranteed to happen. So at a certain point, yeah, the insurance companies are letting it happen or allow it to happen.
What if
And
they were making up the loss by
what is
increasing
your-
their prices? Would that be fine?
They already do that.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm
They've
asking.
been increasing their prices
They increase their
without
prices
like
with
it
or
being
without theft.
related to shoplifting, and
Has
the
nothing to do with
theft is then a
but we're talking
consequence
about-
of
No, but
the
you said it was-
shoplifting.
you just
Of
answered
the-
it
of
was-
the
about
prices,
isolating
right?
variables. Obviously,
Ali,
if
you
the
just
shoplift,
you just
if the
conceded it was
leakage-
because of theft. Sorry.
If the leakage goes up, what they're prepared to accept, then they'll put their prices up.
Wait, did you just say that the insurance companies aren't insuring shrinkage? I mean, do you mean? to
Yeah,
say
they
they're
don't.
not
They don't
insuring
cover
the-
shrinkage.
What
No,
do you
they
think that
do,
means?
but you have to be careful because shrink can include anything from shoplifting from customers. It can include the employers or employees themselves, and then it also includes just items that are damaged. So shrink is any disparity that exists between the book inventory versus the actual inventory once they take accounting of it. And insurance companies are trying to prevent business owners from exaggerating how much loss is incurred due to theft instead of loss that's incurred due to their own administrative mistakes or damages.
For these studies,
I wanna-
do we actually have any of these studies actually had access to the shrinkage reports from these different companies? Because as I understand it, they're typically pretty reluctant to share
They
that
lump
information.
everything in usually.
Most of
Yeah.
what we go with right now is either from the retailers themselves or from just like
no.
other
I understand it's
retailers
from
alongside
it's from the
them. Yeah.
retailers, but do they
When-
actually expose their shrinkage, specifically their shrinkage values, to the
Not
public?
really. It's all rough estimates. That's why, like, the thing that makes up it's about like one third, pretty much. for each
So
of
this
those.
entire argument is apropos of no data, effectively.
Yeah, pretty much.
The data
The
is
other
all
issue
well,
is that,
there
like-
are the
Well,
losses,
the
but,
data
yeah.
is inferred then, which is not great.
other
Not
issue
we're
is that,
trying to
like-
draw we're trying to draw sweeping like conclusions about its effect on society or on the company or whatever. Wick, I got to run. I have another call to take, but thank you for moderating. Arrivederci. Thanks everybody for
Nice talking.
trying. Max, you're pretty
I
good at
can't
this. You
be
should
up
do it
now.
again. Cheerio.
Thank you. Take care of
Okay,
yourself.
Ethan.
That sucked.
Why, hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fine. I listened to that whole conversation. I gotta say, that's just about the right there was more or less a perfect encapsulation of why I entirely left panel and debate content entirely.
That was unreal.
Oh, it was terrible. How do you do that? Like how do you maintain any soul to like want
Rage,
to do that?
sheer rage.
Yeah, is that it? It's
That's
just
probably
rage?
it.
I guess that's kind of how I did it before. I don't even remember. I look back on my past and go, man, what was I fucking thinking? Like down to even, no, not trying to be too hateful here. Everybody has tech issues, but down to like opening the panel with 20 minutes of fucking dead air as people try and figure out their goddamn discords. Like,
Yeah.
damn, talk about wasted air, wasted time.
Well, the problem with Wick is that he wants to run panels in particular, but he also wants to make comments and then use his moderator status to have them.
Oh
run
yeah, that was
questions.
fucking pathetic.
Now,
to be
granted,
completely honest.
under these
That was,
conditions,
genuinely pathetic.
under these conditions, our misgivings with Lonerbox notwithstanding, I think that did kind of even the scales a little bit because, dear God, was Lauren sabotaging her side of that argument.
Oh yeah, I felt bad. I actually felt bad for all of them for
Yeah.
having to deal with somebody that stupid and belligerent.
Yeah.
Like Laguna Beach Lauren or whatever her username is, Hollywood Hills, fucking Hannah here or whatever. Like fucking what the fuck. But I mean, okay, so there was a whole bunch of stuff that I was thinking about throughout. So the first thing, obviously, like Wick. My first thing that I noticed, like Wick stepping in constantly to like put his finger on the scale, is like. All right, if you're just like running a trash fire and your only goal is to just make this thing run as long as possible so you get as many donos as possible, like sure, that's fine. But it kind of sucks that like I mean, that's kind of thing that people have always said about panels, right? You can't actually have a serious conversation about like politics because of how fucking slanted it is. I mean, that was pretty clear, right? He never even provided his source for this thing of like
baby formula.
Baby formula is being cut in with drugs. I mean,
plausibly, look,
listen,
it's plausible. He hasn't provided data for it.
Is it plausible? Sure, but also where is this coming from? Because that was, of course, like I said, never provided, never even attempted to be provided where the claim was coming from.
Well, it's from the government. It's from the ledgers that the drug dealers submit to the government annually. That's where they get the data from. Clearly.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, that was an interesting one. I found that to be just incredible, like incredibly bad faith and sneaky. But like. Secondly, one of the things that was super, super annoying throughout the entire conversation, and this happens every single time this topic comes up that drives me crazy, is a deliberate conflation between, okay, it's not always deliberate. Sometimes people just genuinely don't understand and they're just flatly reactionary. They're just like, ooh, I feel this thing is bad and so I have to come up with a reason for it. But burglary, organized gang theft, and shoplifting and like armed robbery, these things are all constantly conflated in a way that actually it's like mind-bending to listen to the conversation. Burglary, okay, just so that people understand, on a legal term, a burglary is when you break into a place, when you illegally enter a location with the purpose of stealing, okay? Shoplifters are not illegally entering a place. They're going a place that they are legally allowed to go, that all kinds of other people are there, and they're picking something up and stuffing it in a bag. Okay, that's shoplifting, all right? So, like, not burglary. They're not the same things. And organized retail theft is an insanely different thing, okay? You want to know? Let me just list some things that are included in organized retail theft. Heists from Walmarts, where somebody drives a forklift over and plows open the back door, runs into the store, and steals $900,000 worth of product with their pickup truck from the back office, okay? Another portion of organized retail theft, managers running theft rings, which is incredibly, incredibly common. Something that I, having worked at multiple retail jobs, I have actually been witness to. That's organized retail theft. Organized retail theft can include gangs deliberately pressing people into going and stealing things. And all of those things were rolled into shoplifting, but that is not shoplifting. They're simply not the same thing. So like there is like the entire conversation it's completely stupid. There isn't actually, like, I don't even know how to say it. I mean, I don't want to be mean to you, but you've wasted your entire day because nothing of actual truth was discerned here because people can't even decide what shoplifting is or be honest about it. And the reason that they can't be honest about
disagree.
That is because they need to sort of backwards mental gymnastic away into them being as angry about a TikTok video where some lady is contextlessly like stealing some meat that they can justify like all the people.
I searched, by the way. I can't find any information online about that person besides.
Of course you can't. You never can. Okay, I want to draw a parallel.
Even like the general coverage of it, like this happened. Person stole meat in cart. You can't find it. You can only find it on like alternative news websites. Like it has no existence. It's ridiculous.
I just want people to. I want to draw a parallel that I think is really important because I know your audience are generally full of thinking people. At least you know they think.
I think so. That's generally my experience.
I mean, I think so too. But I want people to recognize there is an entire like cottage industry on the internet. In like a literal white supremacist pipeline where, and if you go on 4chan, you don't even have to try. Just go to poll right now and there will probably be a thread of this right now. And what it will be is it will be videos of black people fighting each other, getting into fights.
Yeah.
And they will be contextless videos. You cannot find the source of them no matter how hard you try. It could be from 10 years ago, could be from 20 years ago, could be from the advent of fucking video, okay? The hundreds of these videos that get cycled around by these white supremacists posting videos to cause a guttural, reactionary, disgust reaction of, oh, I'm seeing violence, and oh, I'm seeing, and it's provoking a bad feeling in me, and I'm associating that with the people that I see, which are black people that I don't know and recognize. It is literally a white supremacist. Like, this is a super common thing. Don't believe me? Fucking go to the websites and check for yourself. It's like one of the most common things. This same shit is used with the shoplifting thing. Yeah. And if you notice, every single one of these stupid videos, you can never find the source. You can never find any context. And guess what? The context could even be that it's like the most heinous theft that you've ever encountered. But you will never be able to actually place that in time or space to come to a conclusion about whether or not it's an actual statistical threat or not.
Yeah.
There's no seriousness in this conversation.
No.
The entire conversation from
well,
its
case
basis
in point,
is to provoke a reactionary impulse in a very specific direction.
Well, case in point, even taking like the most negative reads whatsoever on Meat Lady, it's instructive that we only have footage of one of those. Frankly, even if we had footage of 10 of those, statistically, that's not a relevant number.
Well, you don't know, because what if you have videos of 10 of them and they're from one event in the last 10 years across the entire population of America?
Oh, and by the way, for them to be identified as organized, we have to actually determine that there's an organization behind it. A lot of them who are organized, we can't tell.
That was another thing that was constantly irritating me with this conversation, which is that the citations for what is actually considered organized theft, and much like with Wick, is incredibly dubious. How are they proving that this is organized shoplifting? Do they actually have the evidence, or is this simply a statement from a regional manager? Is this a statement from somebody's from like a police chief who's just going off of his feelings?
I bet they couldn't. I bet they couldn't recollect which news source they got it from. Very quickly.
Exactly.
I don't mean to cut you off, but very quickly. Straighterade wants to join us. You cool with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I'll have to open a new group.
I've been super impressed.
Yeah, she's great.
Sure,
yeah,
sure.
she's fantastic. Yeah. I've been shilling her to you for a while now. Hang on.
All right. I'll pop over when.
Wait, I'm not friends with you. What the hell? Why am I not friends with you? What is this? Hang on. So, oh wait, I see. Oh, that's because I had her messenger open. That makes sense. All right, here we go. I am friends with her. Boom. Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah, you're back. She's not though.
Okay. Well, hopefully she'll get in here.
Here, I'm gonna
have to pardon me and let me rant for just a little bit.
Not at all.
Oh, hello.
Straighterade.
Hi, hello.
Post dumpster fire.
What's that?
I said post dumpster fire.
Post dumpster fire, yeah.
Okay. First of all, it's really nice to get to talk with you. I watched you on, I believe you were on the nonviolence channel, right? Or maybe it was a different one. Wasn't it? Maybe it wasn't the nonviolence. I've seen you on something else.
She's been on a few.
I liked what you had to say.
So it's nice to whatever. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, the Whatever podcast, yeah.
The Whatever podcast.
Oh, I don't even know what the Whatever podcast is.
Yeah, you don't want to. Don't worry.
Oh,
I got kicked off because I got mouthy, I suppose.
Oh, well, hey, it wouldn't be the first time.
That's the one. That's the
How
one.
How many times that happened to me, President Sunday? Remember back when I used to do this?
Well, actually, funny thing. Destiny hung up on you. I timed it faster than I hung up on him. But yeah.
Wild times.
Yeah.
A time of significantly worse considerations of my time and valuation of my time. Okay, so I was ranting about a couple of the big issues that I had, and one of them is this incredibly dubious sourcing for 90% of these stupid claims. Like I said, the organized retail theft and the yeah, we have confirmation that these we know for a fact that this baby powder that's being stolen, I mean this baby formula is being stolen, is being used for drugs. I would fucking love to see how they came up with that number.
I asked Wick for his source. He never gave it to me.
Yeah, of course he didn't. I would be willing to put, first of all, if it wasn't, I'd be willing to put like an 80-20 chance that, first of all, Wick just made it up. And then the other 20% chance is that it was some fucking regional manager who just had a hunch. So I don't know. I would love that. Incredible. But
my understanding, the majority of drugs are cut with shit like Comet. like the cheapest stuff imaginable. They're not going out of their way to steal something as difficult as baby formula
Or
en masse.
flour.
Or crap
Flour,
like that. That's super
lidocaine is particularly common with certain types of
sugar,
drugs.
stuff like that.
Sugar is also very common. Things that don't hurt you or kill you. Not expensive shit that's already put. It's stupid. It's fucking. This is all just, again, from the get-go, a fundamentally moronic conversation. But there's another thing. There was one thing that that I thought you got a good point on Present Sunday, which unfortunately this issue nobody was ever able to really go into this, although I think it would have made for an interesting discussion, is like the deterrent issue.
Mhm.
Like, do the deterrents even work? Because I highly doubt that any of the people in this conversation would be prepared to actually have a meaningful conversation about whether or not those types of deterrents actually function.
Well, this is what's kind of
ignored.
Well, the reason why I brought that up is this is actually kind of
Especially-
interesting
wait.
because I had this precise argument on opposite sides though, because I was arguing with at one point Loner Box on the issue of I wasn't taking the deterrent angle, but I was arguing on a death penalty debate. And that was the position that he took, is that it has no deterrent value. But all of a sudden, we're supposed to expect that of 1 to 15-year prison sentences are going to have a deterrent value on people who
I mean,
are
15-year
shoplifting.
prison sentence.
That's
for
absurd.
shoplifting.
Let's just kill
is,
them at that point. That's your entire life gone. Like seriously.
It's actually insane.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Well, he
I don't
kept
think.
backing off of that point because he kept saying, you know, with these repeat offenders, you have to get them off the streets at some point. I had already asked him, like, what do you think is a like recommended sentencing guideline for somebody who is in totality? Because again, you can be apprehended for theft regardless of the amount. It doesn't even have to exceed up to like a felony amount for them to decide to pull you in. So I was like, if you've gotten caught shoplifting like 3 bags of chips or a couple of stuff that amounts to no more than like $100, you're a repeat offender. And
Yeah.
this apparently should carry the penalty of something that is like approximating like a decade, 15 years. But then he backed off of it and he said, how many times do I have to tell you that I'm talking about organized crime, which like you were saying earlier, that shouldn't
Again,
even be in the conversation about
It's not.
That's
Organized shoplifting. Okay, organized. Sorry, the term that was repeatedly used. Yeah, I mentioned this. I don't know if you were listening just before.
I was. I heard it.
Maybe you were.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. The organized retail theft thing is a complete. That is a total. It is a actual like a misleading and bad faith term because it includes so many types of crime that are not shoplifting, and I find it funny. One thing that I find super ironic about these types of things is because like the bar is so low for any sort of serious engagement, because the bar is just set so fucking goddamn low. There's this tendency for people who consider themselves like liberal or progressive to accidentally advocate for things that even despots would consider insane. Like a 15-year a 15-year sentence for like shoplifting is like one step below getting your hand cut off because you stole an apple. Like, that's insane. Like, just think about that. 15 years of life in jail because you grabbed a fucking DVD player out of a store? Are you crazy? Like, that's insane.
I know
That's
the
fucking insane.
starting point with this was Emma Vigeland, or Vigeland, I've never known how to say her last name, sorry, Emma, on Tim Pool versus Sean Fitzgerald, where he brought up this argument about shoplifting. Then Sean was able to get a debate, actual justice warrior, right? Mr. Actual Justice Warrior. Then he's able to get an audience with Sam Cedar and debate him on shoplifting. At one point, he said, I don't care about the root causes of shoplifting or crime. And then from there, Wick was repeating. I keep hearing people repeat the stat from New York State, where apparently the vast majority of in New York City, or at least just New York, a lot of shoplifters are repeat offenders there. We're talking about like 300 people. Yeah. And I guess you saying that anything short of like 15 years is you being like soft on crime. Yeah. Even though I was like, why is it that like, what are we talking about here? Like, how is it that 15 years is more pragmatic in a fucking jail or a prison than just giving these people fucking food to get them to stop, which is probably what would lead to it.
Listen, I am a proud liberal, and and I follow the school of the Iron King himself. I believe that your knucklebone should be removed for stealing onions from the royal coffers. Yeah, I don't know. It's just fucking crazy to me. This shit is so unserious and clownish.
Well, I found it frustrating.
If it's gonna be so clownish, if it's gonna be so clownish, why not just talk about something else? Why talk about something so fucking boring to most people?
Well, I think Wick's operating at cross purposes with himself. He wants to have serious political topics, which is why they're all boring. but by the same token, he wants to run them like drama panels, and it's just like, come
It's
on.
very silly. It's not a winning strategy in the past.
Well, it's not
No,
winning
whatever.
for him, which is frustrating because he'd do better if he just picked one or the other. Doing them both is just frustrating to all parties. I think one of the
Just
things.
have a debate about which. Just have a debate about which Game of Thrones king has the best system of justice, and you would literally get like 500 viewers instead of trying to pretend that you're like actually caring about.
Oh,
fucking
Stannis, clearly.
Walgreens' bottom line.
But
yes, Stannis, definitely.
But I
That's
think
what I was joking about before.
One thing, yeah, I know, I picked that up. One thing that was really frustrated by is there was no uptake whatsoever on the fact, like you're going to make some kind of ethical declaration at this scale of resolution, but like once again, most of the products involved, they are going to be themselves downstream from intensely more vicious types of child labor or just slave labor generally. We don't need to specify child labor. Like the Bangladesh clothes thing.
That was real. I knew what you were talking
Yeah,
about.
that was very real.
I was waiting for you to bring up when that wasn't even a hypothetical. That was you.
That's real.
Pretending that it was.
Yeah, like when you buy cheap clothing at Walmart, just so you know, that is being made in swelteringly hot buildings where people are literally locked in. They are not free to leave during their shift.
Right.
And that has meant in the past that when people need to leave or they die, they die. Like it's insane. We aren't. And by the way, what that means is there's a fire breaks out and they can't escape the building. That means that when that fire broke out, they weren't even monitored. They just locked them in and left them.
Yeah.
Like it's insane. This is so to be clear, we're arguing about whether or not 15 years is appropriate for somebody who takes a few products off a shelf. The company from which they are stealing has murdered hundreds and hundreds of people. It's ridiculous.
Or people dying in an Amazon gulag from heat or exhaustion or whatever. But of course, that's always met with people die all the time. So what can you do?
People die in war. Yeah.
Yeah, what's the old fucking Stalin line? I thought these guys hated Stalin. You know, one Twix bar is a crime. 600 Bangladeshi workers dying horrifically in a fire is just a statistic, right?
So you have to crack a few eggs to make an omelet.
Fucking terrible. Oh yeah, there was one other thing I wanted to touch on that's just like kind of overlooked in this conversation. Nobody ever actually really talks about it, which is the fact that like the what was I gonna say, the counter theft. Like counter theft measures are ridiculously, hilariously expensive. Like laughably expensive.
Like locking up condoms and deodorant and all that shit. Is that what you mean?
By the way, it's not just like the locking up condoms thing. Just by the by, how much loss do you think you're going to have because people don't want to have to involve a retail worker in their condom purchases? Like that's incredibly awkward for 90% of people. Like dear God.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much cost that's incurred by anti-theft measures, and if you look at it on paper, the cost is greater than by a long shot than the cost of the theft itself. This is like acknowledged even by CEOs and executives. They acknowledge this shit. I mean, especially there's the Walgreens one is the best one where they were like, yeah, we may have gone overboard. We accidentally way overspent on just hiring security firms. But like, if you think about the maximal extent of anti-theft measures that are put in place for how small theft actually is on the bottom line, it becomes very obvious how ideological it is. But just as some examples, things like electrical alarms, like spider wrapping individual devices is one thing. I know a lot of people don't even think about that like you have to hire employees to spend their time in the back office individually rewrapping product that you just took out of the box. So their time it goes towards the anti-theft. The devices themselves come at extreme cost. They break all the time and have to be replaced. The metal detectors and wands and all of that are there. Cages and special locks, which take an incredible amount of time and sometimes require you to hire an additional employee just to sit by that one. I know that like at our local Walmart, which is like everything is insanely caged up at our local Walmart, and they have like a dedicated employee whose entire job is to just stand there and one by one help every single person get a bottle of shaving cream. It's horrible and also expensive. And then you expand outward to hiring massive contracts with firms like Securitas, aka formerly known as the Pinkertons, or these other bronze. Yeah, you didn't know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah,
Huh.
the Securitas was like made to like change the Pinkerton name. It was made by a bunch of the original Pinkerton people, and they made Securitas and then bought Pinkertons. And the Pinkerton Security is still a subsidiary of Securitas today. Anyway, yeah, those guys charge crazy amounts. They will have sometimes 24-hour salaried, armed, trained employees who go back and around. Who patrol the lots. All of those people have their benefits, their salaries all have to be paid for. And on top of that, there's another layer, which is that lots of Walmarts in perceived high crime areas will sometimes pay the actual local police to hang around in their lots. They will pay them a fee that is required because, hey, you have a lot of crime issues. So the cost that is incurred is purely out of this fear, out of the idea that we need to keep our strength up. It's a premium that's being paid on an ideological level for a problem that isn't even that large. It's just, God forbid, that you get the idea that, like, oh shit, wait a minute, what is actually going on here? You know what I mean?
Lest we look weak on shoplifting and crime.
Yeah.
I'm about to sound stupid maybe, but Sunday, do you even have Target in Canada? Maybe not.
We did.
Okay, well, it's gone now. Okay, what Target... I didn't even get to bring this up on the panel. What Target does is particularly draconian, because they actually don't bother trying to go after petty thieves or anybody who just shoplifts or whatever. What they do is they create cases, and they wait until you're a repeat offender at that store. And then once you have, stolen enough for a felony amount, then they will catch you. And they have, all of the evidence against it or whatever.
Yeah, Walmart has been doing that as well, as they've installed, as they've moved to those automated self-checkouts. They have cameras in them. And when they have their staff who are hired to just sit there and watch these things, see that you take an underwear, they take the video, they put it in a file, and then when you get up to like 3,000, they try to hit you with a fucking court case.
Yeah.
They're not even stopping. They're not recovering any of their stuff. It's purely punitive. Their idea is, hey, hopefully, we can crush these degenerates. They don't even care. They don't even care about the actual product. The product is so fucking little out of their profit. And again, all of this, the real conversation that people should have been having is what your case, President Sunday, was going in, and also yours, if I remember correctly, Straighterade, which was basically the idea that, like, hey, you're talking about antagonism between incredibly minor actors grabbing, X amount of product versus systematized worldwide wage theft, slavery, expropriation, subjugation of local governments in the name of like giving favorable treatment towards their companies. And there's so much more you could even go into with companies, especially like Walmart, where it's like, they more or less intimidate their way into poor communities where the communities need the jobs of any type. And they say, hey, local politicians, we know you guys need jobs, so why don't you help us make it really, real easy for us to set up our thing here? Maybe you guys can pave over some of these building permits. Maybe you can push through some pro-business, we're bringing business to the area by giving tax cuts in this particular way. And then all of a sudden, the town's owned by Walmart.
Or how Walmart doesn't even pay a living wage, and the majority of, I think it's almost like, I think it's more than a plurality of recipients of welfare in the United States actually partly work at Walmart or spend it at Walmart. So it just becomes like this loop or whatever.
Yeah.
Like they understand what they're doing. And like,
Yeah,
even what they don't, what like was unmentioned here is like what the consequences of actually calling somebody and trying to get them apprehended for an allegation of petty shoplifting, because it's not even going to be proven in a court of law because the majority don't even go to trial. It's going to be plead out, so they're probably going to plead guilty or whatever. You're talking about, like, at least in Texas where I am, it's a crime of moral turpitude, which is literally on par with like public lewdness enticing a child, improper contact, like abusing a corpse, prostitution, like that is what like the plane that they've put theft on. So it bars you from getting jobs at like retail places. It bars you sometimes in some instances from being able to get access to public housing. So it's this like cascading effect of something that I'm like, even if I wanted to get somebody in trouble for stealing, when I know that that's like the punishment that they're going to be facing, how does that punishment fit the crime? So I always like,
Right.
I've never bothered doing it.
Yeah. I think that like the like no you didn't angle is like a morally I don't know, I feel it seems like a fairly obvious argument as to why not. Like, first of all, like there is the like the danger argument that Ali was making.
He was frustrating to me. He was so frustrating.
I mean, I understand, but I think I understood his position.
Yeah.
Like, his position wasn't strictly, like, it wasn't really actually even about like shoplifting itself. It was like more like who bears the responsibility of taking care of the issue. And I understand where he's coming from.
It just wasn't the debate topic. It was like
it wasn't really the debate topic. Well, I mean, I don't know what the debate topic was because it's a fucking panel and none of that ever matters because people just go wherever they want with it.
Fair.
But like, I mean, I can understand where he's coming from as being like an advocate for retail workers. Also, something that's really weird, that I found was very strange and kind of funny from that Lauren person, was the like insistence that like, yeah, totally, it's your job as like a minimum wage worker to like personally police theft. I don't know. Maybe it's true. Maybe in fucking Laguna Beach or whatever, every mom and pop surf shop or whatever, I don't know, that they have there. Every mom and pop Gucci store has the personal
and like
thing
deputize you. And
yeah,
make you, like, be put in
here's
charge
your
of, like, that.
gun. Yeah, get ready to snap their neck if they steal one of our $10,000 shoes. But every single retail position I've ever held has literally insisted that you do not interact with somebody that you think is shoplifting. You're supposed to, if you have an LP department, you're supposed to let them know, and the LP person is supposed to basically ask them to leave the store and apply pressure. And if you think they've stolen something, you wait, and the LP, the loss prevention department, will contact the police, and it's the police's problem. They literally do not want that because because the liability, the simple liability of the fact that like, okay, well, somebody who's stealing something could become scared that they're going to go to jail and become violent. You don't want that. You'd rather them just walk out with whatever shitty item that they grabbed and let the police handle it.
Yeah, in the instance that a shoplifter is even willing to up the stakes to like, no, I'm going to actually use physical force to defend me stealing this like DVD or whatever. Now we're talking about a company leaving themselves vulnerable to a liability lawsuit on the part, or like a workers' comp. I don't even know what you'd begin to call this, like workplace injury lawsuit from somebody who attempted to intervene and prevent somebody from stealing like a $39 movie or something.
Yeah.
Like we're talking about like you've spent $1 to save a nickel.
Yeah, it's bad. And also just again, like I said, my experience with. And maybe it is only a matter of major retailers. They don't care. But that's who was at the center of this discussion. The center of this discussion was grocery store chains and Walgreens. Also, I really like the fact that you, even though, of course, none of them care because they don't care about the topic. None of them cared to actually address it. But the fact that you brought up the fact that, like, oh, yeah, do we really think that Walgreens is going under because of fucking shoplifting?
Shoplifting? It's like,
or is it
Amazon?
cope? Yeah, is it cope for the fact that their company can't keep up with the fact that they're getting taken out just like everybody else? Amazon just launched their pharmacy like 2 years ago, and Walgreens has been suffering ever since. Like, it's fairly obvious where the costs are coming from, and I don't know.
Both of you,
pretty silly.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Aaron, fantastic job today. I'm sorry for
Thank
talking
you.
over you. It's just my nature.
No, you're good.
DemonMama, thanks for coming on and
yeah, of course.
and
Thanks for
providing
letting
me
rant
with
about it.
some. Oh no, by all means, like it's done me some good for my mental health. I'm going to ship my audience off elsewhere. You and DemonMama, Aaron, should absolutely talk more in future.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'd be
for
down to
sure.
have a conversation.
Yeah.
Hit me up in DMs on Discord.
I
You
will.
got
I was
my
a big
name in
fan of you. This was long ago, debating Redneck on Dylan Burns.
Wow, that is ancient
I missed
history.
that one.
Oh my
man,
god, there was a point where he was
worst.
like arguing for the. He was like, you know, like I'm not a bigot. I'm just in favor of like normal families. And she was like, what is that? And he's like, you know, man, woman, picket fence, child, or whatever. You know, the biological picket fences. That was my favorite one.
Yeah, it was incredible. My favorite moment was that has stuck around was him saying that I was the Trump of transes, which was really funny. And then my second favorite moment was the time when
that's a
he
compliment.
just sort of, yeah, I guess. I mean, my other favorite moment was when he, for some reason, and I don't even remember the context of this, except that it absolutely killed the panel. But that was the time when he said that he had a dick that was shaped like a tuna fish can. And then everybody just, the entire panel just kind of like sat there and was like, what? Like, why would you say that here? Like, and he was just like, yeah, it was bad. It was something. Yeah, everyone was just kind of like, all right, bro, I guess get it out there, I guess. Yeah. All right, well, hey, thanks. It was good talking with both of you, and have a good night, President Sunday.
Have a good night, Demon Mama.
You too. Bye.
And have a good night, Aaron. I'm sending you all to food shops. Cheerio. Tell her Sunday sent you.